Chapter 473. The distance between them was less than 2 steps. With Waka's speed after transforming into Azura, it would only take a split second for him to get close to Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng had nowhere to hide. Peng Liyun, who had suppressed his impatience, only did one thing, which was to jump up. He jumped up in a weird posture and stretched his body backwards as if he was jumping horizontally in mid-air. This was the only way for him to avoid the Azura strike. If he jumped up, down or forward, he would definitely not be able to dodge in time below his chest and would definitely be hit by Waku. Even if his bones were not broken, he would still be pushed out of the arena by the ferocious force and would not be able to turn the situation around. Of course, his current actions were only to avoid the initial collision. How could Waku not have subsequent changes and connections? Bam! Waka's body sank and broke through the air barrier. He stopped at the edge of the arena. His eyes were bloodshot. He bent his legs and was about to take the opportunity to throw a punch upwards. He soared into the sky and fell. At this moment, Peng Liyun, who was in mid-air, had a bright glow in his eyes. It was as if lightning was striking down. His palms suddenly clapped together as if he was clapping. Boom! If it was any other martial artist, they would definitely feel their mind shaking and their actions would definitely slow down. However, Waku had already transformed into a violent and bloodthirsty fighting machine. He was filled with such desires and could no longer be clear-headed and rational. He had to wait for the effects of the fist to fade before he could return to the path of the heavenly immortals. Therefore, although his mind was shaken, his body moved instinctively and was not affected at all. He had already punched upwards. This was also the reason why he had to use the path of the Azura on himself in the end. He had to eliminate external disturbances and end the battle quickly without leaving any chances. In the midst of the lightning, Peng Liyun, who was about to land, separated his palms and pulled out an extremely thin, silver-white electric light. When the electric light appeared, it instantly slashed onto Waka's body. It slashed his body and caused his clothes and skin to emit green smoke. During this moment, Peng Liyun visualized many thick thunderclouds in his mind. They stacked on top of each other and had a total of 9 layers. They were filled with extreme yang and violence. This seemed to complement the heaven's punishment. Rumble! There was another deafening roar of thunder. A silvery white bolt of lightning struck down like a shortened version of lightning. However, if one looked closely, they would find that it was Peng Liyun, whose entire arm was wrapped in lightning, stretching his body. He unleashed his Dan force and swung it in the air like a punishment from heaven. Bang! Their fists collided. One's muscles bulged, his blood vessels protruded, and his veins popped. The other's electric snakes danced, as if it was caught in a net. Crack! Waku, who had transformed into an Azura, landed on both of his feet and sank into the ground. His body trembled again and his muscles twitched uncontrollably. Peng Liyun bounced up a little before landing again. He bent his leg in mid-air and struck out with his knee covered in bright electric sparks, aiming straight for his opponent's chest. Rumble! Amidst the thunderous roar, Waku raised his left arm and placed it in front of his body. He used his strength to block the fatal knee strike. He then flipped backwards and threw his opponent out, avoiding the following consecutive kicks. The part of his arm that was hit by the knee was charred black. There was a burnt smell and it was trembling non-stop. Seeing that he was about to be thrown out of the arena, Peng Liyun suddenly retracted his blood and chi. He did a somersault and straightened his right leg. Electric sparks surrounded it as he chopped down with his battle axe. Rumble! 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 He was like a sparrowhawk. He constantly borrowed the force to fly up and attack while landing. He would punch, elbow, knee, kick, or even turn his entire body into heaven's punishment lightning and fling it out. He was fighting fiercely with Azura Waku at the edge of the arena. He was walking on the line of defeat. Rumble! 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 In the eyes of Lu Cheng and the rest, there seemed to be silvery white lightning striking down continuously on the arena. There were 9 consecutive strikes, each brighter than the previous one. It was like the legendary Heaven's Punishment. 9 Heavens Ensemble? And Chaoyang blurted out. This was the 7th move of the Thunder Sect, a unique physical invulnerability skill. No! Ranli shook her head. It should be the Dan stage martial arts that he created by imitating. Lu Cheng, who was at the side, was filled with emotions. He admired Pang Layun from the bottom of his heart. He relied on the Jindan to barely catch up with Pang Layun in 2 years. However, in other aspects of martial arts, there was still a big gap between him and Pang Layun. Pang Layun was already able to imitate the unique skills of his predecessors and create his own moves. He was still in the process of learning and mastering them. This was due to both accumulation and talent. He needed to be like the Dragon King. He had to be more hardworking, more proficient, more knowledgeable, and more challenging opponents to make up for and catch up. Rumble! 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 After 9 strikes, Waka's entire body was numb. His muscles were trembling and the blood in his eyes faded. He woke up from the Azura path, and instinctively took 2 steps back. With this step back, Pang Layun finally landed on the ground. He used Dan Force to activate Machine Punch, and seized the opportunity when Waku was recovering from the 6 paths of reincarnation. He threw out punches that left afterimages behind. Using his footsteps as a pivot, he changed his position from time to time, causing Waku to be flustered. Da-da-da-da-da. Pang Layun moved his joints and tendons. He didn't stop attacking. Finally, Waka's movements became sluggish due to the accumulation of numbness. Pang Layun continued to attack and opened up his stance. He stretched out his hand and pressed on the surface of his body. Bzz. The lightning snake shone brightly. Waku seemed to have been hit by high-voltage electricity and was sent flying. His skin was charred in many places. Thump. He, who was originally at the edge of the arena, landed on the surrounding area. His limbs were twitching and white foam was coming out from the corner of his mouth. Pang Layun stopped his actions. His face was dripping with sweat. His mouth opened and closed continuously as he panted. His eyes were filled with excitement and fatigue. He was almost at his limit. The referee glanced at him and raised his right hand. He announced loudly, "Pang Layun wins." The crowd let out a huge sigh, mixed with some cursing and scolding. The biggest hope of the host was destroyed just like that. Lu Cheng was amazed and speechless. He couldn't help but laugh at and Chaoyang, Ren Li and Zhong Ningtao. "I thought he was going to be reckless today." "Me too." And Chaoyang agreed with a sigh. At this moment, Pang Layun had slightly regained his breath. Seeing Waku being helped away, he couldn't help but mutter to himself, "What a pity. What a pity that he didn't get to witness the wonders of the other 4 moves of the reincarnation punch." He turned around and walked back to the spectator stand with slightly weak steps. He walked to the front of Lu Cheng and the rest and gave them a high five to celebrate. After doing all this, he laughed at himself and said, "I almost lost just now." Hearing this, Lu Cheng and Chaoyang looked at each other and burst out laughing. He really almost lost. "What's wrong?" Pang Layun looked at them blankly. "It's nothing," Lu Cheng answered without hesitation. He added, "Keep it up. Continue to be reckless. The more reckless you are when you meet me, the better." At this point, the first 4 groups of the top 16 had finished their matches. Lu Cheng and the rest followed Zhong Ningtao back to the hotel. As 2 of them had to prepare for the next day's match and 2 of them were almost exhausted, they didn't think of going out for a stroll or supper. They went back to their own rooms obediently, which disappointed some of the people who were watching them. After washing up, Lu Cheng reported the result of the battle to his mother and chatted with Yen Zheka for a while. Finally, he couldn't bear the mental fatigue and said good night in advance. He fell asleep without doing the concealment of spirit and qi. In a daze, he felt like he was back in the provincial youth tournament. He had just defeated Zhang Zhutong and was drained of energy. He had a headache and nausea. He had to hurry up and recover in order to prepare for the finals. In a daze, he seemed to be leaning on Yen Zheka's supple thighs again. She was massaging his head with moderate strength. There was a familiar smell at the tip of his nose and a voice that seemed to come from the heavens sounded in his ears. "When you're old and your hair is white," the voice sounded and faded. Lu Cheng suddenly woke up and saw the ceiling in the dark. It was quiet all around. He was the only one in the dark. He looked at his phone and found that it was only 2 in the morning. He felt an inexplicable sense of loss. He took a deep breath and didn't disturb her. Concealment of spirit and qi, he went back to sleep. The next day, he woke up on time before dawn. He had regained his energy and chatted with Yen Zheka energetically. He continued the training of the metamorphosis stage and felt that his body was getting stronger little by little. In the evening, the first 4 groups of the top 16 started their matches. Ren Li, stimulated by Lu Cheng and Pang Liyun yesterday, performed extremely well and defeated her opponent easily. She and Kaori Karasawa advanced to the top 8. However, and Chao Yang, who was the last to fight, was in trouble. His opponent was Waka's junior, number 6 seed, Gusai. Even though he had yet to reach the level of walking disappearing wisdom, he had an extremely strong physique. Coupled with the heart reflection fist and other techniques, his combat power was equivalent to that of an inhuman. Furthermore, the martial arts that attacked one's soul was a counter to in Chaoyang's greatest reliance, lake and mirror wisdom. This caused in Chaoyang to quickly fall into a passive state. Chapter 474. Bam Bam Bam. Every punch and kick of Gusai contained an exaggerated amount of power. Instead of making a crisp sound, they continuously exploded the air, creating a commotion similar to that of a dance stage martial artist like in Chaoyang. During this process, the plump Gusai didn't appear clumsy at all. Instead, he was as agile as a leopard cat, jumping up and down, moving back and forth, seizing the upper hand. And Chaoyang had to divert some of his attention to maintain the lake and mirrored wisdom to resist the hunger, thirst, exposure to the sun, and pain brought about by his opponent's heart reflection punch. He fell into a passive state, relying on his preemptive senses, judgment, and continuous outbursts to barely hold on and not show any signs of defeat. After a series of frenzied attacks, Gusai saw that he couldn't take down his opponent. The look in his eyes changed, revealing the vicissitudes of life, like an old man going through the final stages of his life. It made people feel the same way, thinking of their own inevitable ending. Heart reflection punch, old. Gusai's fist technique changed, no longer creating the slightest sound of wind, but filled with the desolation of the setting sun. Bam! And Chaoyang pushed his feet inward, moved his knees, twisted his body, swung his arms, and punched out his right fist. It collided with Gusai's bowl-sized fist, creating a dull sound and setting off a gust of wind in all directions. As his arm bounced back, he suddenly felt that his energy was insufficient and his body was weak. It was as if he was watching himself gradually grow old and weak. His skin was shriveled, lost its luster, and became wrinkled. He did not even want to take a look at it, for fear that he would have a nightmare because of it. As an artistic youth who liked to read novels and listen to love songs, and Chaoyang's heart was undoubtedly very delicate. He often felt sentimental about the passing of spring, and sometimes he would think of growing old. Now that he was truly experiencing aging, he couldn't control himself. Fortunately, his tranquil soul was only stirred up by the storm, and the round mirror was not broken because of it. Fortunately, he was still young, and his elders were still around. Before he joined the Shanghai Club, there were very few old people who practiced martial arts around him. He lacked deep feelings for such things. Only then did he manage to stabilize his emotions and suppress the storm. He did not break out in cold sweat like Pang Liyun. He even took the opportunity to take a deep breath, gather his qi and blood, and counterattacked with explosive force, trying to set off a torrential momentum. Gusai's pupils constricted. He didn't dare to be careless. The fats on his body bulged out, becoming chiseled. A terrifying explosive force and a flickering dark golden luster erupted. With a swing of the demon-subduing pestle, he forcefully broke in Chaoyang's follow-up attack. He knew that his biggest problem was the heavy burden and the high consumption of energy. His body was prone to overload. Before he mastered Xing Shi Ji and stepped into the so-called inhuman level in China, he couldn't fight for a long time. Therefore, he made corresponding preparations. He planned to force his opponent to take his Fist of the 6 Paths of Reincarnation head-on when he had the upper hand. Bam bam bam. After another round of heart seal punch and physical strength, Gusai finally found his chance. A dark golden luster appeared in his eyes. Under the light, his fist seemed to be dyed with a colorful halo. With the flowing 5 skandhas, he swung his arm in the opposite direction and hit his opponent. Fist of the 6 Paths of Reincarnation, the path of man. And Chaoyang was forced to the point where he couldn't dodge. He could only immerse his mind into the mirror-like lake of tranquility, and shake out his arm to block the fist. Bam! The dull sound was like a drum beating on his heart. And Chaoyang suddenly heard a song that he hadn't listened to in a long time. After an entire summer, the sadness didn't get any better. Driving on the endless road, I feel like I'm leaving myself. It was a sad melody that he would repeatedly listen to in high school when he was in junior high. Often, he would feel so sad that he couldn't control himself. That year, that month, his childhood sweetheart said to him, "Sorry, I still can't find the feeling, let's just be friends." Becoming better was the key to winning a girl's heart. But even if you became better, the girl might not fall for you. When they were young, the two of them could hold an umbrella and run in a rainstorm, drenching each other but laughing freely. But when they grew up, they could only nod at each other and greet each other when they passed each other. They were so indifferent that it was as if they didn't have many entanglements. Because of the loss of this relationship, he had once listened to songs night after night, blurring his vision and grieving his heart. From then on, he fell in love with loneliness, the feeling of being immersed in his own world, and the beautiful yet painful lyrics of the song. "It's a pity that it wasn't you who stayed with me until the end." Another old song floated over. And Chaoyang was filled with disappointment. He felt that the wound that had healed long ago was clearly exposed again. It was no longer bloody, but it still hurt when touched. Because of this, he lost control of his emotions. He wanted to drink, he wanted to sing, he wanted to vent. This reminded him of a song that he had been listening to frequently during this period of time. It was an old song that he only found out about recently because of a program. That old and hoarse voice of a man, every word struck his heart. Like the waning moon or the ebbing tide of the sea, a piece of my heart was torn away by you. After so many years, the regret is still there. There is a kind of wound that will never heal. That's right, how could he forget that kind of regret? That was his entire youth. That was an entire part of his past life. I used a heavy snow to cover it up, to bury the lost love deep in my heart. Every time I say that my feelings are still blank, no one can tell that I'm lamenting. The melody was sorrowful, and the song entered his heart. And Chaoyang's heart was quickly emptied. Regret surged and broke through the dam. The lake and mirror-mirrored wisdom could no longer be maintained. With a crack, it broke completely. His emotions were like a flood, naturally outlining his visualization. His body straightened and expanded slightly. His fist struck out gently but violently, blocking Gusai's palm that was about to land on his vitals. Gusai's palm took the opportunity to reap the victory while he was in a daze. Bam! Gusai, who had a strong physical talent, was sent flying. His eyes were filled with shock and disbelief, as though he had encountered a real flood. But he quickly realized that something was wrong. And Chaoyang didn't take the opportunity to attack again after the punch. Instead, he stood in the same spot, panting. His eyes were filled with disappointment and faint sadness. Gusai didn't think too much about it. He seized the opportunity and pounced forward, launching a new round of attacks. This time, and Chaoyang, who didn't have the lake and mirror-mirrored wisdom, was flustered. He opened up his stance, closed in, and knocked over with an elbow strike. The referee heaved a sigh of relief and raised his hand to announce, "Gusai wins." The entire stadium erupted in cheers. The host country finally had a representative in the quarterfinals. And Chaoyang didn't suffer any injuries, but his arm was a little sore. He flipped over and stood up. With a gloomy expression, he clasped his hands at Gusai and said, "Thank you." "Yes, thank you. If not for today's battle, I'm afraid it would take me a long time to understand the true meaning of a flood. If I'm still controlling my emotions, how can I talk about a flood that breaks the dam? Only when my emotions are fully released and I don't need to be calm. Only when my body and mind are united can I unleash a true flood." Unfortunately, this was a sudden understanding without much practice. After one punch, my body was drained and I lost control of my emotions. Not only did I fail to grasp the opportunity to win, I even showed signs of defeat. After finishing his sentence, and Chaoyang turned around and returned to the spectator stand while Gusai looked confused. What a pity! Lu Cheng and the rest could see that he had comprehended something and almost won. They couldn't help but sigh. "It's all right." And Chaoyang smiled calmly, indicating that he didn't need any consolation. At this point, the quarterfinals were all decided. The drawing of lots would begin later. There was no longer any principle of avoidance. The top 4 would be decided the day after tomorrow. While waiting, Lu Cheng and Yen Zheka chatted for a while. Both felt that at this stage, there was a high probability of drawing an inhuman mighty one. Therefore, it didn't matter. 15 minutes later, the arena was cleaned up and rearranged. After some nonsense, the first name was drawn. Miluo Vagar. The second seed, Vagar, was a strong character who was hailed as the future overlord. Following which, the guest took out another round ball. Looking at the name, she let out a tantalizing exclamation. After a dozen seconds, she seemed to have recovered. With a sharp voice, she announced, Japan, Kaori Karasawa. The first seed, Kaori Karasawa. The two hot favorites for this year's competition were going to meet in the quarterfinals. One of them was destined to meet his end. The atmosphere in the arena heated up. Lu Cheng soon heard his name. China, Lu Cheng. If I'm lucky, I'll be the only non-seed, non-wild card contestant left. If I'm unlucky, I'll be facing Pang Layun. Lu Cheng thought to himself, not changing his posture. After a few seconds, the guest drew his opponent. Showing the round ball to the crowd, she announced, Nanjing, Banam. The fourth seed, Banam. Not bad, not bad. Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief. This wasn't bad, but it wasn't bad either. He was indeed weaker than his opponent, but it didn't mean that he had no hope of winning. At this moment, his heart suddenly stirred as a certain subtle thought appeared in his mind. There were only 4 contestants left. It wasn't impossible for such a duel to happen. While he was deep in thought, the guest had already drawn the host for the third duel. China. Pang Layun. Then, she took out one of the 3 remaining balls. Smiling, she announced, China, Ren Li. Damn, it's really like this. A duel of fate. Lu Cheng laughed. Beside him, Ren Li opened her eyes wide. Her expression was one of excitement. The quarterfinals this time was really intense. Just the thought of it made one's blood boil. There was no need to draw anymore. The host, Gusai, would be facing the non-seed, non-wild card contestant. Chapter 475. Vagar stood up as soon as the lot drawing was over. His tall and majestic figure cast a shadow around him. He pressed down on his general cap, looked at the arena and snorted. He then left the Shengxiang Stadium without looking back. In the Japanese representative team, the only remaining Kaori Karasawa clenched her fist and tapped her chin lightly. Her pink lips pouted as if she had been wronged. However, there was no emotion in her eyes. Nanjing's Banam rubbed the bandage on his hand. He turned his head and gave Lu Cheng a cold stare, as though he was sizing up a dangerous prey. Then, he walked along the corridor and silently made his way to the main door. Beside Lu Cheng, and Chao Yang put on his headphones again and immersed himself in the world of music. Ren Li glanced at Pang Layun and took half a step away from him, as if trying to draw a line between friend and foe. From now on, we are no longer teammates. Pang Layun, on the other hand, seemed to have thought of something. He stood there in a daze, ignoring all the gazes. Lu Cheng shook his head silently. He picked up his phone and sent the matchup for the quarterfinals to Yen Zheka. The girl seemed to be worried about him. She replied quickly during class. Covering mouth, laughing expression. I was worried about my Cheng when I saw the 4th seed after the 5th seed. However, after seeing the battle between Vagar, Kaori Karasawa, Pang Layun and Ren Li, I felt that it was nothing. Happiness comes from comparison. I think so too. That's why I'm in a good mood. Lu Cheng typed leisurely with a smile on his face. With that settled, Yen Zheka put aside her distracting thoughts and listened more attentively. Her reply speed slowed down again. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, browsed the forum while waiting for Chao Yang and Ren Li to head to the changing room for a shower. Hey, so shady. Eternal nightfall, Yen Xiaoling sighed as she drew the lot. I've never seen such an obvious shady scene. Even a primary school student like Lingling can see through it. Covering face expression. Brahman sighed. Unparalleled Dragon King laughed. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. It's normal for the host to be taken care of. In order to sell tickets, they have to get a spot in the top 4. Otherwise, why would they work so hard to organize this event? As long as the referees are not biased or blind, and there are no other problems, everything will be fine. That's right. I think this is acceptable. No matter what, the cheat team, no, our wildcard team, has also secured a spot in the top 4, right? Road to the arena said, smiling expression. This is acceptable for Lu Cheng. Although he didn't get the 2 weakest brothers, at least he didn't meet the strongest ones. Yes. That's why I didn't scold him. I even wanted to laugh. This must be because I've helped Lu Cheng accumulate good karma. Yan Xiaoling sent a proud emoji. Okamoto's fan asked curiously, how did you do it? Everyone who participated in the discussion was interested in this question. They kept urging him to continue. Even Lu Cheng himself pretended to be a bystander and asked a question. Seeing this, Yan Xiaoling stammered, I went to watch a movie with my best friend in the afternoon. After we finished, she suggested we go for a walk. As we walked, we both realized that neither of us knew the way. You mentioned this before. You said you roared at her. Tilting head puzzled expression. Brahman asked, this has nothing to do with accumulating good karma, right? Yan Xiaoling replied, pointing fingers expression, but when I roared at her, I stepped on a pile of sich asterisk tea. Ha, you've accumulated a lot of good karma. Little Nightfall. You should come when we meet next time. You're so cute. I like you so much. Wonton Seller laughed loudly. Unparalleled Dragon King teased. With your love for asterisk tea, shouldn't you be ecstatic? Manual funny emoji. That's a very interesting reply, a plumber eating mushrooms agreed. After a few more teasing words, Invincible Punch changed the topic and sighed. Ever since Emo Jingting hung up that video, I've realized that the number of people paying attention to this King of Youth Pro League has increased. There will be more to come. Peng Liyun and Ren Li's fateful duel, Kaori Karasawa and Vagar's rivalry, and Lu Cheng's challenge to an inhuman mighty one before he completes his transformation. These are all very eye-catching matches. Any one of them would be able to support the entire top 8, not to mention there are 3 of them. Sighed the moderator, Pig Riding Night. At this age, there aren't many matches like this. After watching the lot draw, I'm getting excited. Unparalleled Dragon King concluded. Back at the hotel, the few of them went back to their rooms without causing any trouble. Zhong Ningtao, the leader, nodded slightly in satisfaction. Although these 4 prodigies and quasi-prodigies were different from ordinary people and weren't very reliable, at least they knew their limits and listened to his orders. They were proud but not arrogant, unlike the ones he had brought before. They were young, hot-blooded, and strong. Each and every one of them was extremely bossy and domineering. If he wasn't careful, they would cause trouble. Sigh, it's true that a pot of water makes no noise, but half a pot of water makes a lot of noise. After entering the room, Lu Cheng took a pillow and placed it behind his back. While chatting with Yen Zheka, he leisurely browsed Weibo and forums, and repeatedly studied Banham's battle videos. Time passed quickly, and soon it was 10 o'clock. Suddenly, he heard knocking sounds coming from the door. Who is it? Lu Cheng shouted, got off the bed, and walked to the door with his phone. He boldly opened the door. At the door stood a girl with blonde hair. She had dark eyebrows, big eyes, and a pretty face. She wore a nightgown that only reached the middle of her thighs. Although it wasn't revealing, it perfectly accentuated her perky breasts and slender legs. She was exceptionally attractive. Her hair was half wet and stuck to her cheeks. When she saw Lu Cheng, she bit her lower lip lightly and revealed a pitiful look. She said in choppy Chinese, "Help, help me." The corner of Lu Cheng's mouth twitched, and he smiled warily. "You can ask the hotel staff for help. Do you need me to call the front desk?" He waved his phone and blocked the door, preventing the girl from sneaking into the room. "Although this girl is pretty, it's none of my business." The girl was stunned and instinctively shook her head. When she was about to say something, Lu Cheng took a step back and mercilessly closed the door after she refused to look for the hotel staff. Clang! The girl saw the wine-red door closing quickly in front of her eyes. Her body involuntarily jerked back, and she was stunned on the spot. Behind the door, Lu Cheng unlocked the screen and excitedly shared his encounter with his wife. "A girl knocked on the door just now." Yen Zheka couldn't ignore this kind of thing. Relying on her professional ninth pin skills, she carefully took out her phone and asked, "Why?" She said she was looking for me for help, and she was wearing pajamas. I asked her to look for the hotel staff directly, but she refused. So I just closed the door and locked her out. Lu Cheng proudly boasted. Well done. Yen Zheka praised him in her heart. Hands clasped under chin expression. She said, "This feels weird." Well, Cheng, you handled it very cleverly. You have to do this in the future. Lu Cheng was about to reply when he suddenly heard another knock on the door. He scratched his head and said, "What should I do? She hasn't given up yet and is still knocking. If the surrounding people find out, it'll be bad for me." Yen Zheka rolled her eyes and thought quickly. Pushing up her sunglasses expression, she said, "At this time, you need your life coach, Coach Yen, to help you. The best way to deal with this kind of situation is to not do anything and directly call the front desk, explain the situation clearly, and let them send someone to deal with it." Smart. Lu Cheng immediately realized and praised her generously. "I'll call the front desk right away." After sending this sentence, he paused and thought about how to organize the English words to describe the situation without ambiguity. He felt that it was quite difficult. So he embarrassedly added, "How should I say it in English?" Yen Zheka almost burst out laughing. "Ha!" she said. "Come, let me help you translate." Just as Lu Cheng was holding his phone and chatting with a smile, the woman outside continued to knock on the door. She had made up her mind that if he appeared again, she would take extreme measures. She would throw herself at him, fish in troubled waters, and take advantage of the situation. No man would call the police for such a romantic encounter that had nothing to lose. Knock, knock, knock. She knocked on the door in despair. Then, she saw even more despair when two burly hotel security guards appeared at the intersection not far away. They shouted loudly, "Miss, which room are you in?" 10 minutes later, the woman returned to the car outside the hotel in a fluster. She complained to the leader of the Japanese delegation in the back seat. "That person is very vigilant, unlike many men who are always thinking about romantic encounters and easily fall for the bait. He will definitely report it. This method can't be used anymore. I think it's better to bribe the hotel's janitor to collect the information." No, every day before the janitor cleans, their leader will ask for the room card to check the room. The leader of the Japanese delegation pondered. "I'll think of another way." The next morning, Lu Cheng, Pang Liyun, and the rest entered the Shengxiang Martial Arts Stadium that they had booked earlier. Renli looked around but didn't look at Pang Liyun. She said seriously to Lu Cheng and Chaoyang, "I want to spar with him separately." Is this a hidden method to deal with Pang Liyun? Lu Cheng pondered. Although he was curious to avoid suspicion, he turned to Chaoyang and said, "You spar with Ren Li. I'll go with Pang Liyun." "Okay." And Chaoyang had calmed down and didn't decline. When the two of them went to another arena, Lu Cheng saw that Pang Liyun was still in a daze. So, he told the leader about the strange incident last night. "Well done." Zhong Ningtao was stunned for a few seconds. He nodded with a smile and reminded, "Tell me earlier next time." Lu Cheng was about to reply when he saw Pang Liyun's eyes regain their vigor. He shook his neck, making crisp cracking sounds. August 23rd, 7:30 p.m. After a day of rest, the flames of the King of Youth tournament reignited. The strongest four were about to be decided. Chapter 476. The successor of Shinjai sect, Kaori Karasawa, took 11 minutes to defeat the second-seeded Vagar with half a move after the arena had turned into a mess. She was the first to advance to the semi-finals. This intense battle gave the audience a new understanding of the two inhuman mighty ones. Vagar, who had given it his all, was at least 30% stronger than when he had almost lost to Lu Cheng in the double elimination round. It was breathtaking. On the other hand, the beautiful Kaori Karasawa's explosive power at the critical moment was even more terrifying. It was comparable to Pang Liyun's performance when he turned the tables on Arhut Waku. In the live stream post, Unparalleled Dragon King praised excitedly, "Brilliant. Vagar is strong, but Kaori Karasawa is stronger. Get a stool and wait for the match between Lu Cheng and that wretched guy." Wonton Seller was having a carefree time during the summer break of her third year of high school. Why wretched guy? Okamoto's fan seemed a little sensitive to this term. Wonton Seller transformed into rolling glutinous dumpling and said, "He's always hiding in the corner sneakily. That's why he's a wretched guy." 23333 well said. Thumping the ground laughing expression, replied Brahman. Eternal nightfall, Yan Xiaoling wandered over and said, I'm waiting for the big shots to analyze the match. After saying this, she weakly added, You're right. The 4th-seeded guy only has one more seeded than the 5th-seeded guy. He shouldn't be that much stronger. They don't have the same fighting style, so there's no direct comparison. Road to the arena, explained to the little girl with a sense of accomplishment. Muko Yamashita is a head-on battle type, which suits Lu Cheng's taste. However, Banam likes to fight in close quarters and move around. He either doesn't give you the chance to use your big move, or makes it so that your big move can't hit him. Also, and Chaoyang mentioned on Weibo that Banam's darkness can secretly weaken his opponent. The exact method is unknown. In other words, the longer Lu Cheng fights, the higher the chances of him losing. A plumber eating mushrooms chimed in, so it's about a 4 to 6 chance of winning. Lu Cheng 40% and Banam 60%. Both of them have a chance of winning. Banam's fighting style is sinister and vicious. He's good at avoiding his opponent's strong points and attacking his weak points. Even if Lu Cheng wants to end the battle quickly, he probably won't be able to catch him. This is very dangerous. That's right. With 3 minutes as the boundary. If Lu Cheng can't beat Banam in the first 3 minutes, then he won't be able to win. Pig Riding Knight agreed. Even if force concentration can effectively neutralize weakness, it can't withstand the accumulation of weakness. His girlfriend, above the sky, said, I'm looking forward to the first 3 minutes of the match. It will definitely be more intense than the previous one. What they said is what I want to say, Unparalleled Dragon King said in a comical manner. Then I'll probably suffocate for 3 minutes. Yan Xiaoling replied. Hugging head, kneeling on the ground, trembling expression. Brahman immediately said, I'm so nervous that I can't eat my snacks. As they chatted and discussed, time passed by slowly. The second round of the quarterfinals was about to begin. It's about to start. Lu Cheng glanced at the electronic clock, smiled and exhaled. He said to Yen Zheka on QQ. She should still be on her way to school. The girl replied quickly without delay. This time, she sent a picture of the oven again. Inside it were all kinds of unattractive biscuits. Good luck. Pfft, it's really the oven series. Lu Cheng shook his head and laughed. Yen Zheka smiled and said, Of course, I'm a man of my words, but I've only tried the cake and biscuits now, there's no third picture. If you want to cheer for me in another way, then fight for the next round. Sure. Lu Cheng replied resolutely with a smile. This is a good way to cheer for me. After finishing his sentence, he locked the screen and passed his phone and wallet to An Chaoyang. He reached out his hand and gave him a high five. Good luck. An Chaoyang smiled and waved his fist. Peng Layun and Ren Li, who were standing on his left and right, did the same. After a high five, they waved their fist and said, Good luck. Okay. Lu Cheng nodded vigorously. He turned around and was about to walk to the arena. At this moment, An Chaoyang realized that his phone screen was locked. He shouted in confusion, Lu Cheng? I don't need to help you take pictures and post today? Yes. Lu Cheng turned around and smiled. I've already thought of a reason. If I let you unreliable people do it 2 more times, I'll lose the game. What reason? An Chaoyang asked in surprise. Ren Li was also curious and listened attentively. Hee, I'll tell you after the match. Lu Cheng didn't say anything else. He turned around and waved his hand. He walked towards the arena step by step. He started to focus and his momentum gradually gathered. His thoughts were running fast. According to the discussions with Yen Zheka, Peng Layun, Ren Li and An Chaoyang, he already had a mature plan for the upcoming match. To deal with Banam, he had to end the battle quickly. He didn't want to be gradually weakened by the darkness. He had to watch himself fail little by little. At the same time, he couldn't be too hasty. Once he was hasty, it would be easy for assassin-type fighters to seize the opportunity and take him down in one strike. This was the overall strategy, but he couldn't be careless about the details. Although he could now infuse his every move with fire force and use high temperature to denaturalize proteins and make them lose their toxicity, the principle behind the weakening effect of Banam's darkness was unknown. It could only be based on poison. If it was similar to Ren Li's hidden scent or some special wave, then he wouldn't be able to defend himself. He could only rely on breath-holding or force concentration to neutralize the effect. He had to finish off his opponent as soon as possible. As for how to end the battle quickly, Lu Qing also had a general idea. Banham probably didn't know that he had mastered the ice mirror, just like how he didn't know that Chaoyang had mastered the lake and mirror wisdom. He only understood it after the first battle. Martial arts like the ice mirror and the lake and mirror wisdom belong to the auxiliary category. Without experiencing it personally, it would be hard to notice it just by watching the battle videos. Moreover, both parties were from different countries. There would definitely be some gaps in the information collected. Therefore, during the battle with Chaoyang, Banham had used the darkness ability to affect his senses to launch a sneak attack. He had wasted this opportunity. According to his style, if he didn't consider the ice mirror, he would definitely try something similar in this match. It was just that he would be more cautious and roundabout than when he fought Chaoyang. And this is my chance. A chance for him to walk right into my trap. Once I get the upper hand and seize the opportunity to win, I have to be extremely aggressive and grab hold of it. With all kinds of thoughts, Lu Cheng kept jumping up and down. When he was nearing the arena, Lu Cheng collected his thoughts and focused his attention on what was in front of him. He knew that Banham had the means to avoid the suppression of his aura. Therefore, he held back the terror of the blizzard and waited for the right opportunity. Tap, tap, tap. He walked steadily to the predetermined position and saw Banham, with his hands and feet wrapped in white bandages, walking towards him silently with the gaze of a hunter sizing up his prey. This kind of gaze is really annoying. I really want to beat him up. Lu Cheng complained to himself. He quickly calmed his mind and removed all distracting thoughts from his mind. When Banham entered the arena, the referee silently counted to 30 seconds. He raised his right hand, looked around and swung it down fiercely. Begin! Lu Cheng stomped his feet, straightened his knees, spun his waist and shook his body. His entire body was like an explosive blizzard, blowing towards his opponent with a whistling sound. In the recent few days of sparring, he had been interacting with Peng Liyun, Ran Li and Chaoyang. Other than the core things, they were free to talk about them. They were able to stimulate their thoughts and generate inspiration. Everyone had learned a lot. For example, he had mixed in the superficial knowledge of the flash attack and some of the wonders of the windsect movement technique. He had pushed his northern wind to another level. Good companions could really make a person better. It was the same in the path of martial arts. Phew! A strong gust of wind blew, cutting his face like knives. In Banham's eyes, Lu Cheng was approaching him at a terrifying speed, from small to large. His body seemed to be drifting as he took a step to the side. At this moment, the light in front of Lu Cheng suddenly disappeared. The sounds by his ears also disappeared in an instant. At this moment, it was as though the Shengxiang Stadium had experienced a blackout. Furthermore, all the spectators had silently died on the spot. It made one's hair stand on end. It was exceptionally terrifying. Lu Cheng had already expected this. He stopped in his tracks abruptly and went from a high-speed state to a standstill. He adjusted his muscles and directed all the momentum towards the arena floor. Under normal circumstances, he should have heard the sharp sounds of friction and shattering. However, the surroundings were silent. All the noise seemed to have been swallowed by the strange darkness. The lake in Lu Cheng's heart had already condensed into a crystal-clear mirror that reflected his surroundings. He wasn't affected by the loss of his senses. A ripple appeared and he immediately locked onto the direction of Banham's attack. However, the subtle premonition that came from his body and mind told him that this was a feint and not the real killer move. Lu Cheng believed in this premonition and didn't make any moves. As expected, that ripple quickly calmed down. A turbulent wave followed closely behind and almost disrupted the ice mirror. Good move. I've been waiting for you. A thought flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. Immediately, a boundless darkness appeared in his mind. It had the coldest coldness and the quietest atmosphere. However, it made one feel transparent and dreamy. In this kind of darkness, dust accumulated and heavily collapsed. Streams of flames shot out, forming a scorching and terrifying Yen Di divine statue. It illuminated the heavens, transmitted warmth, and erupted with an enormous rumbling sound. This brought about a dazzling light and an even more intense collapse. A mutated version of severe warning. Lu Cheng was waiting for Banham to attack him in the dark and give him a severe warning. The first attack of the match. Bam! He turned his body halfway. The muscles on his right arm bulged and vibrated at high speed. He swept backwards and hit a slightly cold fist made of flesh. Poof! As though the darkness was absorbed, the lights in the stadium lit up again. Astonishment flashed across Banham's cold eyes. He felt as though there was a terrifying mini-vortex or heavy ball hidden in his opponent's fist. It devoured all of his strength and sucked in his arm tightly. Boom! The whirlpool exploded and the violent shockwave spread out rapidly. It was like a huge iron hammer that smashed into Banham, causing blood to flow out from the corner of his mouth. He lost his balance and was sent flying backward. This was the result of a move that leaned toward sneak attacks and a simplified physical invulnerability move in a head-on collision. Lu Cheng's eyes lit up. His chi and blood suddenly retracted. He stomped on the ground and pounced forward with a cracking sound. He was as fast as a high-speed train and landed in front of Banham, who had just landed on the ground. The strong wind he stirred up could even blow a child away. Before Banham could stand firmly, he was already swaying in the wind and rain. A dim light flashed in his eyes and condensed into a sharp spike. He was about to shoot towards Lu Cheng and attack his mind secretly. Lu Cheng had absolute reaction and immediately noticed it. However, he didn't draw the forwarding formula to suppress his mind and defend against the secret art. Instead, he raised his hand to form a seal and visualized the army blade. Attack against attack and not give in. This was the aggressiveness he wanted to show. He wanted to seize the opportunity and grab the fruit of victory in his hands. Army! As the deep ancient voice reverberated, Lu Cheng was hit by the serene sting. The light in his eyes dimmed as though he had fallen into a nightmare. The ice mirror in his heart shattered inch by inch and neutralized most of the impact. On the other hand, Banham's body was trembling. Fear was written all over his face. He was trembling in fear and had forgotten the situation he was in. With the neutralization of the ice mirror, Lu Cheng was the first to recover. He took a deep breath and gathered the fear, and panic brought by the serene sting together with his chi and blood, spirit, and force to his lower abdomen. Boom! His Dan force gushed out like an awakening volcano. Lu Cheng grew taller as though he was filled with blood. His muscles propped up his clothes and showed a twisted state. He was full of masculinity. Many in the audience were swayed as they experienced the beauty of strength. The usually gentle and easygoing young man was extremely manly at this moment. Bam! Lu Cheng's muscles tightened and he visualized a thick thundercloud in his mind. He shook his right arm and swung it towards his opponent with the Thunder Roar Zen. Banham had just suffered internal injuries from the mutated version of Severe Warning. Thunder Roar Zen was the best way to aggravate and trigger the impact. The second strike of fire-like invasion. Seeing the fist smashing towards him like a mountain, Banham stimulated his chi and blood and ignited his strength. He quickly raised his arm to block. Bam! Amidst the loud noise, he jumped a little from the hit. His organs were shaken and the smell of rust filled his throat. Lu Cheng's eyes were firm. He swung his arm and once again tightened his chi and force, completing the explosion of Dan's stage. He didn't give Banham any hope of dodging or counterattacking. He continued to tighten his muscles and punch forward. The third strike of Thunder Roar Zen. Bam! Banham was good at close-range fighting. He couldn't use his chain attacks at all. He could only grit his teeth and awaken the potential in his body. His fist glowed with a faint black light and burst out from his ribs to welcome the enemy's attack. Bam! As the two fists collided, he trembled. His chi and blood were in turmoil and his head was almost dizzy. Following the momentum of the enemy, he slid backwards. Just as Lu Cheng was about to close in and give chase, darkness filled his eyes again. The surroundings became quiet again and he lost track of Banham in an instant. At this moment, this inhuman mighty one from southern Zhang was looking for an opportunity to break away from contact and regroup. If I don't attack, I won't be able to sense him, right? Lu Cheng's expression didn't change. His muscles, fascia, and organs changed accordingly. The image of the heavy and hot Emperor Yen statue appeared in his mind and allowed the flame force to take shape. Following which, he shook his wrist and shot a ball of red and white compressed fireball in front of the ice mirror mark. Boom! The loud noise broke the silence and disturbed the darkness, causing it to lose its support and fade away quickly. In an instant, Lu Cheng saw rolling waves of fire and smoke. He also saw Banham, whose movements were affected by the explosion of Emperor Yen force. Gotcha! He took a step forward and formed a seal with both hands. In the lake in his heart, he wrote the ancient words of never admit defeat. Fighting! Lu Cheng roared and attacked step by step. Every move of his unique skill was unforgiving. The fourth strike with all his might. Bam! His muscles were knotted and it was as though he had transformed into a mountain-splitting giant. He swung his huge axe downwards. With a bang, Banam, who had hurriedly raised his arms to block, was smashed into the ground. He was an inch shorter and dark red blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Again. Lu Cheng took advantage of his weakness and took his life. He took half a step forward, raised both hands and formed a seal with both hands. Fighting! He exhaled solemnly. His arms swelled instantly and his muscles were unusually distinct. He then shook his arm violently and executed a crushing punch with Zen tremor. The fifth strike was unstoppable. Banam's eyes flickered. He hugged his arms and made a twisting gesture to welcome the enemy's fist. Boom! There seemed to be an explosion at the spot. Banam almost spat out blood. He took advantage of the recoil, curled his body into a ball and flew backwards. Bam! Lu Cheng used the attainment formula. With a stomp of his feet, he chased after him amidst the sound of flying rocks. He closed the distance in an instant. The coldness in Banam's eyes intensified. While he was flying, he was prepared. Before he landed on the ground, he had already extended his right hand. It was covered with a layer of faint black light, forming a strange yet distinct contrast with the white bandage. The faint black light converged towards his opened 5 fingers quickly and condensed into a deep black color. It turned into pieces of sharp thorns, and was about to grab Lu Cheng's fist. This was Banam's trump card. Once he grabbed it, he would immediately lose his strength temporarily. At that time, he could take advantage of the situation to tear and cripple the enemy's arm. Of course, this would also cause him to suffer a backlash. Unless it was a last resort, or if he had the chance to win in one strike, he was more than willing to use darkness to gradually weaken his opponent. At this moment, it was the former situation. At the critical moment, he had to seek victory in defeat. Seeing those black fingers that made one's scalp go numb, Lu Cheng suddenly stopped. He accumulated his inertia and created a sharp friction sound. However, he didn't stop to avoid it. Instead, he stopped to buy time for visualization. A scorching hot, heavy, and terrifying statue of Emperor Yan appeared in his mind. It was like a huge sun, compressing the flame force in his body into a ball. Following which, fire god Zhurong stepped out of the void with a crimson dragon under his feet. He suppressed the loss of control that was about to explode. Lu Cheng took a small leap and faced Banam's palm that was flickering with dim light. He swung his arm backwards, and with the momentum, he threw out a punch with a bang. Internal explosion punch. Not retreating for the 6th strike. At this moment, if he didn't dare to fight head-on, he would give Banam a chance to catch his breath and turn the tide of the battle. As for Lu Cheng, he was a martial artist who had experienced life and death battles. He was determined and dared to risk his life. His fist broke through the air barrier and created a layer of flames from friction. It dragged out a white wave, and hit the palm that was flickering with faint black light. Their skin was touching and their strength was balanced. At the same time as the flame force gushed in, Banam's palms made a closing motion. His 5 fingers protruded with tiny muscles and veins as he firmly grabbed Lu Cheng's fist. A strange glow flashed by. Boom! It was as though a bomb exploded in Banam's body. The injuries and concussions from before were completely triggered. His chi and blood were boiling, his organs were shaking, his mind was buzzing. His throat was thick with rust, and his vision was blurred. He almost bent over and fell to the ground. He didn't have the strength to grab and tear his enemy apart. As for Lu Cheng, the flames that covered his fist burned away part of the black light. Only his body felt weak and his mind wasn't affected much. He held on, using his willpower to control his mind and his mind to control his body. He withdrew his chi and blood, gathered his force, and suppressed his weakness. Boom! With the explosion of Dan force, he recovered part of his strength. His muscles were distinct and sweaty. Bam! He visualized the thundercloud again and struck out his right arm in the opposite direction. 7th strike of Thunder Roar Zen. Bam! Banam, who was barely resisting, jumped and spat out blood from his throat. He fell to the ground softly. Lu Cheng lifted him with his toes and held on to his throat. The referee looked at both parties deeply. He raised his right hand and announced, Lu Cheng wins. Lu Cheng won after 10 moves. Lu Cheng retracted his right leg weakly. Seeing that Banam was barely standing, he saluted and returned to the spectator stand without stopping. After he took a few steps, the audience finally reacted. They exclaimed loudly and cheered Lu Cheng's name again. He actually defeated the 4th seed in such a short time. Lu Cheng's footsteps weren't slow. He returned to his original position in no time. He bumped fists with Pang Layun and the rest who were stunned and didn't know what to say. He took back his phone. He first sent a smiley face to Yen Zhaka and said, I won. Then, he switched to the live post interface. He saw that little Wonton and the rest had tagged him many times and requested to take photos. His fingers moved quickly as he typed. Lu Cheng replied with a smile, I didn't even have time to take a picture before the competition ended. This was the reason he prepared. Chapter 477. Seeing Lu Cheng's reply, Wonton Seller immediately nodded her head vigorously and said, Yeah, I haven't even recovered from the shock yet. He won just like that? At most 10 moves? It was a little too fast. Unparalleled Dragon King said. But it was F*King exciting. Violence, ferocity, and the most primitive feeling of power. My adrenaline was pumping and I couldn't wait to rush out and fight with my dog. Okamoto's fan chimed in, sinister smile. That made me a little stiff. Hard. F*CK. You F*King gay man. A plumber eating mushrooms scolded his friend. Okamoto's fan replied, spreading hands and raising eyebrows expression. Don't you think that Lu Cheng's fighting style makes your blood boil? I want to beat my chest and roar like King Kong. I want to find a girl and have a good fight on the bed. It's normal to be hard. Pervert. You pervert uncle. Brahman scolded and said. But, to be honest, when my idol attacked with all his strength, I really wanted to touch his muscles. Cover my face. Haha, Brahman who is starry-eyed. Wonton Seller said, thinking back, I also thought that Dragon King was very manly. That's why I became a martial arts fan. Thinking back? Don't use this word for a minor who hasn't reached 18 yet. Road to the Arena said jokingly, thinking back, I thought that martial artists were especially good at acting cool. That's why I was apprenticed. Oh right, speaking of minors, where is our primary school student? Eternal Nightfall, Unparalleled Dragon King just realized that Lu Cheng's loyal fan was missing from the post-match celebration and discussion. After the Yen Xiaoling quickly appeared. I'm watching the replay. It's the 3rd time. Wipe your mouth. I'm actually speechless. You won. Unparalleled Dragon King said, who would have thought that Lu Cheng would win so quickly and so cleanly before the match? I feel that his transformation is almost complete. He's almost at the real inhuman level. Pig Riding Night guessed, Banam isn't the type to fight head-on. If he made a mistake and was caught by someone of the same level, it's inevitable that he would be killed by a combo. That may be the case, but defeating an inhuman mighty one within 10 moves is still very shocking. It's a pity that I don't understand Shengxiang language and Nanjing language, so I can't go to the news and forums to see how they flatter, how disappointed they are, and how they prostrate themselves. Plumber eating mushrooms sighed. Unparalleled Dragon King chuckled. Give me 2 minutes. I'll check the Japanese forums and see what they say. After a while, he copied and pasted the original text and translated, how should I call him? A genius once in 3,000 years? To think that I even cheered for Bonham for 10 seconds. Why 10 seconds? Because he lost. Even Kaori-chan can't beat Banam so quickly. Lost says TSS attacks. 10 moves, tease. Smoked sauce is the best. I feel that this generation of Chinese is very strong. Those idiots from the Martial Artist Association should open their eyes and take a look. Stop being so arrogant. They need to reform the entire training system. Ridiculous battle. Terrifying samurai. At this point, Brahman said, Continue. Little dragon. Continue. I'm over the moon watching this. After replying, Lu Cheng only took a few glances and didn't watch seriously. This was because his phone's special notification had rung. Yen Zheka sent an emoji with a red face. I thought you wouldn't be able to get your phone back so quickly. So I watched the replay again. Pfft. Isn't this the same as Yen Xiaoling? Lu Cheng almost burst out laughing. He sent a proud emoji and said, "Come on. Praise me as much as you want. I can take it." To be honest, he was a little smug when he replied to the people in the forum with the excuse of, "The battle ended too quickly and I didn't have time to take photos." Yen Zheka rolled her eyes and asked with concern, "I heard that Banam's last move was very powerful. Cheng, are you okay?" It was indeed very powerful. Lu Cheng pretended to be pitiful. Although I have regained some of my strength, my body is still weak. All my attributes are deteriorating. If I hadn't finished Banam off then, I would have been in a dangerous situation. Of course, Banam had endured the mutated version of severe warning and switched to the internal explosion punch with Emperor Yen Force as the core. Furthermore, he had been hit with the fighting formula twice, followed by a few thunder roar strikes. Coupled with the backlash from his ultimate move, even if he managed to pull through, his condition would at most be the same as Lu Cheng's. More importantly, their martial arts path only focused on unearthing the potential of the human body to unleash explosive power. It wasn't like China's force concentration, which allowed one to control one's body and neutralize the effects. If they continued to hurt each other like this, Lu Cheng would definitely last longer. However, this was because Banam hadn't been able to break free from his attacks. If he had opened up a distance and entered the scene he was best at, Lu Cheng would have been weakened by the darkness. He wouldn't have been able to continue shaking his opponent, and the tide of the battle would have turned quickly. "Yeah, it's good that you're fine." Nodding like a chick pecking at grains expression, Yen Zheka shouted, "Cheng!" "Yes." Lu Cheng replied immediately. "You were so cool just now." Yen Zheka pursed her lips and danced with her fingers. She added silently in her heart, "And especially manly too." After sending the message, she lifted her head and looked out of the car window. She saw the American-style buildings on both sides of the road and a topless teenager hitting a sandbag in the garden. Those martial arts fans in school would definitely praise Cheng again because he was amazed. Yen Zheka's eyes looked into the distance and her dimples showed. As she thought about it, she suddenly felt an uncontrollable sense of loss. Lu Cheng's lips curled when he saw the girl's praise. The joy of defeating Banam exploded. He couldn't wait to stand up and pace a few rounds. At this moment, his heart skipped a beat. He turned his head and looked to the side. He saw Kaori Karasawa, who had changed into a kimono and was sizing him up. Her hair was tied up, her round face was sweet, her eyes were beautiful, and her smile was demure. She didn't look like the genius girl who had just defeated Vagar. Instead, she looked like an ordinary student attending a festival. Their eyes met. Kaori Karasawa nodded slightly. Her eyes were as deep as an ancient lake, which didn't match her age and temperament. The martial arts of the Xinzhai sect were both mysterious and violent. They wouldn't be easy to deal with. Lu Cheng thought. If they were to encounter each other, even if he completed his transformation, his chances of winning wouldn't be high. Shifting his gaze elsewhere, Lu Cheng happened to see Banam's staggering figure leaving the changing room. He walked out of the martial arts arena silently, just like how he came in silently. As for Vagar, he never appeared again after losing to Kaori Karasawa. As for Waku, he didn't come to the arena to watch the match. He started his daily training again. Muko Yamashita stared at the young man who was half a head shorter than him. He had mixed feelings. This goal isn't bad, right? Kaori Karasawa's voice suddenly rang in his ears. Muko Yamashita turned his head and frowned, expressing his doubts. With such a goal, Muko-kun would definitely be full of motivation and wouldn't slack off. Otherwise, he would never be able to wash away his shame, Kaori Karasawa chuckled. Muko Yamashita's mind buzzed and his emotions exploded. He felt like he was being mocked. However, he calmed down quickly. He knew that Kaori Karasawa was speaking the truth. She was even trying to provoke him so that he wouldn't become numb to failure and get used to the shame. "Thank you. I will prove it to you." Muko Yamashita replied in a deep voice. As he spoke, he suddenly felt a little lost. Could he really surpass Lu Cheng again? Could he really wash away this shame? On the other side, Lu Cheng had already retracted his gaze. He couldn't hide his smile as he played with his phone. And Chaoyang glanced at him. Seeing that he wasn't going to respond, He thought of the question he had before the match. He took out his phone and entered the live stream thread to look for a reply. "This is the reason you came up with?" He was stunned for a few seconds before blurting out. Why was he so confident? Lu Cheng lifted his head and explained with a smile. "Yeah. I was already prepared. This match was either a quick win or a quick loss. Anyway, any reason could be used." Luckily, Banham was at a disadvantage at the start of the match. All right. His thinking was really thorough. And Chaoyang's mouth twitched and said thoughtfully, "If that's the case, if Banham wanted to weaken his opponent with his darkness, he would need to have close contact. Otherwise, he wouldn't have needed to sneak an attack on you. He would have had a 70% to 80% chance of winning by going around and stalling for time. If that was the case, Banham wouldn't have been hit by Lu Cheng's killer move at the start of the match." "Yeah. I've seen part of his previous videos. That's what I thought too." Lu Cheng nodded in agreement. Then he thought of something. He glanced at Ran Li and Pang Layun, who were 10 meters away from each other. He lowered his voice and said, "After Ran Li advanced to the inhuman stage, would there be changes to her dark fragrance? In the past, it required the plague sect force to hit the opponent as a prerequisite. Moreover, the area of effect was very small. Without these two restrictions, dark fragrance would be a bit of a bug. With Ren Li's outstanding wind sect footwork, once dark fragrance was released, she would be able to move around in circles and wait for victory." And Chaoyang turned around and looked at Ran Li. He whispered, "It's not that exaggerated, but it's probably much stronger than when you encountered it." While the two of them were talking, the arena was tidied up. A battle that was enough to be engraved in the hearts of the audience was gone. After a song and dance performance, the referee stepped into the arena. The third match was imminent. Pang Layun and Ran Li stood up at the same time and walked towards the arena from two different aisles. They had even forgotten to high-five their teammates. Looking at their backs, Lu Cheng held his phone and couldn't help but laugh. Why doesn't Ran Li get lost when she goes to the arena? This is probably true love. And Chaoyang smiled and replied. The battle between Pang and Ran that couldn't happen due to Lu Cheng in April was about to begin. Chapter 478. One in white and one in red stood on the left and right of the referee, about 12 to 13 meters apart. This was the first official battle between Pang Layun and Ran Li, who had been known together for a long time, after more than a year. The last time they fought, one of them was a weak 6th pin, while the other was a top 7th pin. Now, both of them had reached the inhuman stage and were worthy of the title of Heavenly Son of the Era. Unfortunately, the audience didn't understand the hidden history and meaning behind this battle, so they couldn't create the best atmosphere. Ran Li regulated her breathing and slightly trembled her muscles, secretly warming up her body. Her eyes reflected the young man opposite her, who was no longer idle and was focused on his battle. The referee looked around, raised his right hand and shouted, "Begin!" As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Ran Li take a step to the left and twist her body in the opposite direction. Her muscles, fascia, and strength bulged, and with a bang, a tornado visible to the naked eye appeared. It roared and swept toward Pang Layun. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The wind whimpered as if a demon was coming, especially disturbing the listener's mood. Just as Pang Layun's mind outlined the sacred and majestic thunder god statue to suppress his mind, he felt the heavy wind pressure on his face. Ran Li was approaching. As an old enemy who knew her well, he didn't try to respond. He directly put his palms together and was about to release the thunder from a clear sky. At this moment, Ran Li seemed to have sensed something. Her wind force suddenly swelled, twisting her muscles and fascias, and suddenly swinging her center of gravity, making an incredible turn in the high-speed dash. Bang! There was an explosion at the original spot, as if an airplane was flying at low altitude, or a high-speed train was running at full speed from dozens of centimeters away. The strong wind made the referee subconsciously raise his hand to block in front of his face, and his body swayed back. Ran Li's wind steps had reached an incredible level and reached the real inhuman level. In a turn, the strong wind could push people away. Pang Layun's thunder from a clear sky was drowned out by the loud noise. The thin thunder blade that he pulled out chopped at Ran Li's original path, hitting the ground and creating a scorch mark. Having fought against each other so many times, they were no longer probing each other. Right from the start, they were all shaken to the core. After completing the turn, Renly suddenly lowered her shoulders and flicked her wrist in the opposite direction, causing the force to surge into a high-speed spinning wind blade that shot towards Peng Liyun's throat. At the same time, she twisted her back and swung her waist, kicking 7 times in a row. Every kick was either aimed at Peng Liyun's ankle joint or his knee. She had completed the 27th move of the wind sect. Striking from the top and kicking from the bottom, cold blade, and tornado. Peng Liyun seemed to have expected this. He suddenly raised his right arm in front of him, and his fist, which was wrapped in electric light, went from bottom to top and hit the bottom of the wind blade. With a sharp friction sound and a sudden high-pitched sizzling sound, the wind blade disintegrated and turned into a gust of wind. Inside his body, there seemed to be a turbocharger that was spinning crazily. When he raised his arm to block the knife, he seemed to be repelled by the wind pressure generated by Renly's tornado chain kick. He was pushed hard and swung back just in time. He didn't straighten his back and didn't exert any strength. Bam bam bam. Renly's kick missed. Peng Liyun took a step forward, withdrew his chi and blood, and exploded his Dan force. He stretched his fascia, flexed his joints, and launched a machine punch. Bam 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 bam. The sounds of the punches were endless, and the electric light came one after another. Renly didn't back down. She used tornado again and kicked with explosive force. Her whole body seemed to be half floating, stirring up a scary strong wind. Seeing the electric snakes flying around, the strong wind blowing, and the sound of the punches hitting their hearts like drums, Lu Cheng'an and Chaoyang couldn't help but be amazed by the level of Peng Liyun and Renly when they gave it their all. The big devil, who was serious from the beginning, was really scary. His attacks were smooth and his defense was natural. Renly, who was usually unreliable, didn't seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Her leg skills were amazing, and her sword skills were in her palms. They were evenly matched. This level of intense battle was enlightening for the two of them. They watched without blinking, afraid that they would miss out on the key points. Because of this, Lu Qing only took pictures occasionally and posted them in the live thread. Everyone understood his condition, because everyone was like this. The heated discussion just now had become cold and quiet. Phew, when my transformation is complete and I stabilize, will I be at Renly's level now? Lu Cheng thought as he watched. It had been almost 5 days since his transformation. He had already overcome the difficulties in the early stage, and his progress was more than half complete. There were only 7 or 8 days left for him to slowly finish up. In terms of physical fitness, he could be considered a standard inhuman mighty one, but he still lacked the taste of precise control. Maybe not as pure as Renly, but his actual combat level should be about there. Lu Cheng nodded slightly, comparing and judging himself. Bam bam bam, bam bam bam. Dust floated above the arena. The wind was strong, and lightning flashed continuously, illuminating the eyes of the spectators. Renly and Peng Liyun fought and retreated, sometimes competing with their body movements, and sometimes making turns. They fought from the center to the left, and then from the left to the other side. There was not a single intact brick left on the ground. In these 5 or 6 minutes, they didn't use their simplified physical invulnerability moves, because if they didn't have a good opportunity and missed, they would easily fall into a passive state and be suppressed by their opponent. After a tough battle, Renly finally relied on the advantage of her body movements to sneak to Peng Liyun's side, seizing an excellent opportunity. In her mind, she naturally outlined a green hurricane that connected the 9 heavens and the earth. Seawater, trees, and boulders were sucked into it and rushed to the sky. This led to changes in her corresponding muscles, fascias, and organs, causing the layers of Wind Empress force to twist and turn into a spiral. Following which, various kinds of wind blew, replacing the hurricane and condensing into the image of a female god, suppressing the force that was about to go out of control. Bam! Renly bent her body forward and blocked with her left arm. She turned her waist and stretched her back, so that her right fist came out from below and turned into a sky cannon. Peng Liyun took a deep breath and gathered his strength. His arm swelled, and he bent his elbow to strike. Electricity leaped out of his body. Bam! The sound was urgent. Renly's right arm reverberated. Her fist was sore and her muscles were numb. She couldn't help but take a step back. Peng Liyun felt that every part of his body was being torn apart. A strong wind rose from under his feet, spiraling and sweeping, making him fly up uncontrollably. The 10th move of the Wind Sect, 9 Heaven's Breath. Simplified physical invulnerability. Peng Liyun had just been sent flying when Renly stepped on the ground and made another loud sound. She took advantage of the place where her opponent was about to fall and was ready to wait for him to come out. Facing this, Peng Liyun's thoughts turned quickly. He quickly visualized and finally fixed his eyes on the green jade amulet floating in the void. BZZT BZZT BZZT. Lightning flashed on the jade amulet and turned into seal characters. The force of heaven punishment in Peng Liyun's body gathered in his right palm. Bam! He pressed down hurriedly and a silver lightning as thick as a thumb suddenly appeared in his palm and struck towards Renly. This was another application of the thunder seal. Peng Liyun couldn't use it unless he reached the inhuman level and his body had mutated. Renly's scalp was numb. When her opponent pressed down hurriedly, she suddenly straightened her back and took a step back forcefully, triggering the strong wind. Bam! The lightning struck and brushed past Renly's body and hit the ground, spreading out small sparks in all directions. Taking advantage of the arrival of the divine punishment, Peng Liyun had already landed halfway. When Renly regained her composure and came again, his feet had landed on solid ground. He didn't use the divine punishment consecutively like how he dealt with Waku because his opponent was different. Renly could throw wind blades and had many tricks up her sleeve, unlike Waku who only knew how to fight head-on after turning into an Asura. Therefore, he felt that it was best not to take the risk unless it was absolutely necessary. Renly knew that her chance was only for a moment. She didn't hold back anymore. The scene in her mind was already fixed on the plague sect deity with 3 heads and 6 arms and vertical eyes. Bam! She threw out a punch. Her joints suddenly stretched and her arms strangely grew a little longer. It was this little bit that made Peng Liyun's dodging look like a mirage. He could only use the force of absorption and explosion to block the attack with his fist. Bam! Renly was knocked back. Peng Liyun's body was suddenly empty. His chest was stuffy and he was short of breath. He almost lost his mind. Knowing that Renly would follow up with the hidden scent, he suddenly used force concentration to dispel it. Then, he held his breath and launched a crazy attack. Bam bam bam. Bam bam bam. Punches, kicks, elbows and knees. Every attack of Peng Liyun's was accompanied by a thick silvery white electric light. In the eyes of Lu Cheng and the rest, it was like lightning strikes again and again. The continuous divine punishment had changed to an explosion on flat ground. However, it was still terrifying. For an inhuman mighty one, not breathing for a few minutes wasn't a problem. However, that was under the condition that they didn't do any strenuous exercise. Now, Peng Liyun had been holding his breath for a full 2 minutes and still showed no signs of stopping. Lu Cheng's eyelids twitched as he felt the difference between him and his opponent. Renly activated the hidden scent and gritted her teeth to hold on. Her wind force was continuously shattered and her body was continuously electrocuted. However, she couldn't find a chance to open up a distance. As time passed, the accumulated numbness in her body finally reached its limit. She couldn't even use force concentration. Her arm was knocked away by Peng Liyun's elbow. Taking advantage of the situation, he flicked his joints and threw a punch towards her throat. Renly's body was numb and her movements were sluggish. She couldn't block in time and could only watch as the punch stopped before her vital organs. Without hesitation, the referee raised his hand and announced, "Peng Liyun wins." Renly heaved a sigh of relief. After a while, she did a force concentration to suppress part of the numbness. She then cupped her hands and turned around, walking towards the stone steps with the bouncing of her muscles. After 2 steps, she suddenly paused. Peng Liyun was still standing there, motionless, as though he was waiting to be cheered. Puzzled, Renly turned around and looked at that guy. She asked softly, "Why aren't you moving?" Peng Liyun smiled bitterly and said, "I'll fall if I move. I couldn't hold my breath for the last dozen moves." Now that the hidden scent has completely taken effect, Renly was stunned for a moment. The corners of her mouth suddenly curled up, and a hint of pride appeared in her eyes. She waved to the staff next to her, raised her chin and said, "You guys help him." With that, she walked down the arena with her head held high. Her mood improved inexplicably as she accepted the compliments from Lu Cheng and An Chaoyang. In the 4th match, Gusai won easily and clinched the final spot in the top 4. The lot drawing ceremony was held shortly after. The guest drew the first name. Gusai. Lu Cheng lifted his gaze from his phone and saw the guest take out the second round ball. Let's hope the host pulls another dirty trick. I'm the weakest after Gusai. Pick me, pick me. He'll only have a chance of entering the finals if he picks me. The guest took a look at the round ball and showed it to the crowd. Pang Leyun. Lu Cheng was stunned for a moment. When he came to his senses, his opponent was confirmed. Kaori Karasawa, the top seed Kaori Karasawa. Chapter 479. Kaori Karasawa. Lu Cheng muttered the name and turned to look at the Japanese representative team. The girl in kimono was also looking at him. Her expression was calm and her gaze was gentle, without a hint of hostility. However, Lu Cheng knew very well that this would be the strongest opponent he had faced in this competition. The title of top seed wasn't just for show. Shinjai sect was a martial arts sect with a long history in Japan. It was the product of the combination of local swordsmanship and the Zen techniques of Buddhists from the East. During daily training, it cultivated one's mind and nature through flower arrangement, tea ceremony, and painting to find one's self. During actual combat, it was known for its speed and ferocity, and for its mystical and explosive power. It had the mind's eye, and was good at blind fights and random attacks. Among them, the Flying Dragon Takedown was known for its extreme speed. Once it was successfully executed, no one in the same realm could dodge it. It was similar to Pang Leyun's low-level version of Cloudless Thunderblade, but there was a fundamental difference in the way it was executed. Pang Leyun only needed to strike with his palms, and his opponent would know to suppress his mind and dodge it. However, the Flying Dragon Takedown had little warning signs. By the time it was detected, it would be absolute reaction. Of course, no matter how fast it was, it couldn't be faster than the speed of lightning. If both parties maintained a good distance, there was still hope to dodge or block it. Generally speaking, Shinjai sect was a Japanese swordsmanship sect heavily influenced by Buddhism. Before Kaori Karasawa reached the inhuman stage, she had used her swordsmanship to combine with her fists and legs, stunning the entire Japan. She was known as a once-in-3,000 years talent. Originally, when both parties reached the inhuman stage, weapons were allowed in the arena. However, in the King of Kings tournament, as most of the Inhumans had just reached the inhuman stage, their control was doubted. Hence, such practices were banned to prevent bloodstains and corpses from appearing. This prevented Kaori Karasawa from facing her opponent in her strongest form, and could only use 90% of her strength. Even so, in the quarterfinals, she managed to barely defeat the unarmed second seed, Vagar, with half a move. It was as though the halo of the champion was already on her. Phew! Lu Cheng exhaled. He didn't feel dejected, but rather satisfied. To him, he had already achieved his initial goal by entering the top 4 and obtaining a considerable amount of prize money. Under such circumstances, he would definitely be more than willing to experience different styles of martial arts to broaden his horizons and accumulate experience. Like Pang Leyun, there would be no lack of opportunities to spar with him in the future, so there was no need to rush it. As for Kaori Karasawa, it might not be possible for him to spar with her for another 2 or 3 years. Once he missed this opportunity, who knows when he would be able to witness the martial arts of the Shinjai sect. Since he didn't pick Gusai, he would rather have Kaori Karasawa. His muscles trembled slightly and his blood flowed faster. Lu Cheng's fighting spirit was boiling in his heart. He began to look forward to the semi-finals the day after tomorrow. No matter how strong my opponent is, it's not like I don't have any hope of winning. Who in the world would willingly admit defeat right after the match had been decided? At the Japanese delegation, Kaori Karasawa's lips curled into a sweet smile. She seemed very satisfied with Lu Cheng. She turned her head sideways to size up the enemy, but from the corner of her eye, she saw the researcher with messy hair, Makoto Otaki, walk to her side and bow excitedly. Kaori-chan, I'm counting on you. Kaori Karasawa answered non-committally. Her mind was already filled with images of the previous matches. Not bad, there's no infighting, said the leader, Zhong Ningtao, happily when he saw the results of the draw. Moreover, with Pang Leyun going up against Gusai, a spot in the finals had been secured. The wild card team had successfully completed their mission. Pang Leyun could even win against Waku, who was at least half a level stronger than Gusai. With the experience of dealing with the heart reflection punch, his chances of winning would only be higher. That's good, that's good. Lu Cheng smiled perfunctorily. His fingers quickly tapped on the screen and sent the results to Kujaka. Kaori Karasawa. Yen Zhuka replied quickly. Sitting in a dazed expression, I feel like the host has given up on himself. Haha, I think so too. After all, it's unlikely that Gusai would win against anyone. Moreover, Shengxiang's results are already better than Nanjing and Miluo's. Now that they've secured a spot in the semi-finals, it doesn't matter who they pick. That's right, that's right. There's no need to play dirty anymore. Yen Zhuka suddenly said, Cheng, are you destined to clash with the Japanese? Why do you keep picking them? First it was Ichii Sakata, then it was Muko Yamashita, and now it's Kaori Karasawa. Are you trying to single-handedly defeat their entire delegation? Ichii Sakata, Muko Yamashita, and Kaori Karasawa were the three strongest members of the Japanese delegation. Defeating them was no different from defeating the entire team. Now that you mention it, I feel like I had a grudge against them in my previous life. Why do I keep picking them? Kaori Karasawa is very strong. It's been almost a year since she achieved Chi and got a 6th Dan black belt. If she unleashes her full strength and wields a blade, I feel like she's even stronger than Pang Layun. I'll be lucky if I don't get beaten by her. My chances of winning against her are slim. I'm not being humble, I'm just speaking the truth. I won't brag in front of my little fairy if I don't have much confidence in winning. I believe in you, Brother Cha. Yen Zhuka suddenly sent an emoji of a monkey wagging its tail and giving out red hearts to encourage him. You'll definitely do well. Yeah, I can't say you have a chance of winning. That'll ruin your character. But it's weird that Chang keeps picking Japanese mighty ones. Yeah, the King of Youth Pro League has been weird since the beginning. We were given 4 wild cards, and there was a mysterious woman knocking on our door at night. Yen Zhuka looked up and pursed her pink lips. She had some doubts in her heart, but she couldn't string these strange things together. Soon, she stopped thinking and began to listen to the teacher attentively. In the live thread, Eternal Nightfall Yen Xiaoling sent an emoji of a sighing with open arms as soon as the results of the draw were out. What's the big deal? What happened to the cheating host? If he cheated, wouldn't it be Lu Cheng against Gusai and enter the finals? Unparalleled Dragon King replied, I overestimated their self-esteem. They're actually satisfied with the semi-finals. That's normal. If it was Waku, there wouldn't be much doubt if he made it to the finals. But if they relied on drawing lots to send Gusai to the finals, that's too shameless. Who's going to bring them along in the future? Road to the Arena was mentally prepared for this. Then I've overestimated their shamelessness. A plumber eating mushrooms replied, spitting. Let's not talk about this anymore. The important thing now is, does my idol have a high chance of beating Kaori Karasawa? Asked Brahman. At most, a 20% chance of winning, Pig Riding Knight answered honestly. Unparalleled Dragon King chimed in, Lu Cheng can barely beat Vagar when he's at full strength, let alone Kaori Karasawa. Although it's a little exaggerated to say that she's a once-in-3,000 years beauty, she's still capable. Let's see if she's careless or if she's injured from the fight with Vagar. As for Lu Cheng, he's always been able to outperform himself, so we don't have to worry about him. Invincible Punch had almost taken Lu Cheng as his role model. Then I'll enjoy the competition and snacks. Sob sob sob. Brahman replied, wiping tears with a handkerchief. I'm not listening, I'm not listening, I'm not listening. Eternal Nightfall replied, Yen Xiaoling. After drawing lots, Lu Cheng and the rest returned to the hotel. Among them, Ran Li was exhausted. Pang Layun was still under the influence of hidden scent. He didn't say much and went straight to his room. And Chaoyang sat on the sofa in the lobby for a while. He listened to music and watched strangers come and go, enjoying the solitude in the crowd. Lu Cheng washed up first, then curled up on the bed. He chatted with Yen Zhuka while browsing through Kaori Karasawa's battle videos given by Unparalleled Dragon King. His routine was no different from the previous few days. He didn't feel bored at all. Instead, he enjoyed it. Outside the hotel, there were 2 exits. Each of them was guarded by a group of sneaky people. However, They didn't see any member of the wildcard team go out alone. They're too obedient. Why don't they go out and have some fun? The leader gritted his teeth and whispered, Shengxiang's red light district is famous all over the world. Not only can they taste ordinary flavors, but they can also make all kinds of strange things. The person beside him was also puzzled. In the past, there would always be people sneaking out from the Chinese delegation. Maybe these 4 guys are a little weird. The leader sighed. That girl doesn't go out to shop either. Isn't she wasting her time coming here? The person beside him quickly explained, Renli has no sense of direction. She was asked by the leader to go out with him. I heard that she's also face-blind. She can't remember what others look like. Who knows when she'll forget who the leader is? The leader was fantasizing about possible opportunities. But it's not to the extent that she can't remember when we meet every day. The person beside him was getting more and more depressed. After another 2 days of tough training, Ran Li and Chaoyang, who were eliminated, volunteered to be Lu Cheng's sparring partners. As for the big devil king Pang Liyun, he didn't have much sparring practice due to his experience with Waku and the influence of hidden scent. He only fully recovered 6 hours before the competition. August 25th, 8 p.m. Shengxiang Stadium was packed with people. Passion was burning like fire. At the start of the competition, Pang Liyun almost lost again. After experiencing the 6 paths of reincarnation punch in its entirety, he retaliated crazily and narrowly defeated Gusai with 1 move. He was the first to advance to the finals. A battle that could have been finished in 1 minute was forcibly shortened to 10 minutes by him. After a 15-minute performance, the referee once again stepped into the arena and raised his hand to both sides. Lu Cheng, who was holding his phone, stood up slowly. Opposite him, Kaori Karasawa patted her black fencing suit and stood up slowly. Top seed versus Miracle Boy. Chapter 480. Go for it! Pang Liyun, who was beside Lu Cheng, took a sip of the nutrient solution and extended his fist with a smile. He had returned from the locker room and was refreshed again. Lu Cheng bumped fists with him without saying anything else. When he bumped fists with Ran Li, and Chaoyang, and Zhong Ningtao, and was about to turn around and walk to the ring, he muttered in his heart, Why is Cuz cheering so late today? If I wait any longer, I will miss it. And it's not the oven's highlights anymore. At this moment, his phone finally rang with a special notification. He unlocked it and saw a long voice message from Yen Zheka. Voice message? So long? Is it singing or something? Lu Cheng pressed play in confusion and put the receiver to his ear. After a short moment of silence, a clear cough was heard, followed by a delicate child's voice. I'm Eternal Nightfall. Go for it, Lu Cheng. After the child's voice came a slightly coarse but equally young female voice. I'm Brahmin. Go for it, Lu Cheng. I'm Unparalleled Dragon King. Go for it, Lu Cheng. I'm Wonton Seller. Go for it, Lu Cheng. I'm Bull Demon King. Go for it, Lu Cheng. All the good names are taken by dogs. So embarrassing. Go for it, Lu Cheng. Different voices rang out one after another. All of them were active members of the fan forum. Their cheers reverberated and lingered in Lu Cheng's ears. He was stunned at first, but then he couldn't help but feel moved. His heart felt warm as if it was soaked in warm water. I'm Okamoto's fan. Go for it, Lu Cheng. I'm Nye Chi. Go for it, Lu Cheng. At this point, there was the initial silence, but soon, a clear and melodious girl's voice rang out. I'm Yen Zheka. Go for it, Lu Cheng. When the familiar voice entered his ears, it was like the finishing touch that poked Lu Cheng's heart, blurring his vision. He couldn't help but laugh and look to the side. This was the go for it that Ku had carefully prepared. She must have put in a lot of effort. Everyone must have been very enthusiastic and overcame their shyness. Lu Cheng lowered his head again. He first sent a fist and dancing emoji, and then he sniggered. You should have said, I'm a little fairy. Or use nicknames like Lu Cheng's girlfriend, or Lu Cheng's wife. Hurry up and go to the competition. Stop nagging. Yen Zheka waved her hand in disdain. Understood. Lu Cheng laughed and said, Raise your hand and salute. Then he added, Thank everyone for me. After sending the message, he locked the screen and threw his phone and wallet to An Chaoyang. He turned around and walked along the aisle towards the arena. Just as he took 2 steps forward, he suddenly heard a chorus of shouts. Lu Cheng! Lu Cheng! Come on, Lu Cheng! I haven't won yet, and they're already cheering for me? This was the first time Lu Cheng had received such treatment in Shengxiang. He instinctively looked in the direction of the voice and saw Chinese flags waving in the air. He saw the faces of his countrymen. When Peng Liyun was competing, they cheered like this too. According to the team leader, these were students studying in Fulua, businessmen, workers who came to earn money, and local Chinese. They had specially come here to cheer for him and the rest. Thank you for your cheers. Lu Cheng's heart warmed, similar to when he was facing Bakuo. He couldn't help but raise his hand and wave at the spectator stand. Sensing his gesture, the men and women with Chinese flags painted on their faces cheered even more enthusiastically. Lu Cheng! Lu Cheng! Come on, Lu Cheng! In such an atmosphere, Lu Cheng's footsteps became lighter and quicker. He stepped onto the arena before Kaori Karasawa and gathered his aura. It was like a summoned snowstorm, suppressing the surroundings, hovering in low spirits and affecting people's hearts. As for Kaori Karasawa, she walked over slowly. She was so quiet that it reminded one of a deserted bamboo forest where the wind rustled through the leaves, or a clear lake with ripples that reflected the mountains and trees. She swayed under Lu Cheng's brutal blizzard that contained the smell of blood, as if she had no power to resist. However, once the wind passed and the snow stopped, she would immediately return to her peaceful state and remain motionless. Let him do as he pleases. The moon shines over the river. This phrase suddenly appeared in Lu Cheng's mind. He couldn't help but praise the Xinzhai sect for living up to its name. Kaori Karasawa walked to the predetermined spot and stood firm. A faint but sweet smile appeared on her face. She bowed solemnly and said, Lu Cheng, please enlighten me. You flatter me. Lu Cheng cupped his hands and quickly went through the footage of his opponent's battle, pushing himself to the highest possible state. Kaori Karasawa clenched her right fist and placed it on her left waist. She spread her legs and bent her body slightly, getting into a stance. The surrounding noises suddenly disappeared. Everyone held their breaths and concentrated, waiting for the referee to open the curtains for this important match. The referee looked around and glanced at the electronic clock. Finally, he raised his right hand. After a silent count of 3, he waved it down and shouted, Begin! The second match of the semi-finals had officially begun. The battle between Japan's 3,000-year-old genius beauty Kaori Karasawa and China's heavenly son of the era, Lu Cheng, had officially begun. Kaori Karasawa suddenly lifted her right leg and stomped down hard with the faint glow of her chi. It was as though she was waving a weapon and striking the arena. Bam! The ground shook violently and suddenly cracked open. Rocks and soil were propelled by the hidden force under Kaori Karasawa's feet, flying towards Lu Cheng. Some were big, some were small, but all were as fast as bullets. At the same time, Kaori Karasawa used the rebounding force to leap out like a flash of a blade. She closed in on her opponent and circled around him, waiting for him to dodge. Xinzhai Sect's Xitagaba takedown. This move was similar to Lin Kei's unique skill of the fighting sect, Ground Fisher. However, instead of creating a burst of energy to shake the enemy, it was used to disturb the opponent, or to attack a group of people who were much weaker than the user. These two moves each had their own unique and ingenious moves. When Kaori Karasawa slashed the arena with her foot, Lu Cheng had already imagined what might happen next. He resisted the urge to dodge head-on and instead drew the outline of Emperor Yen and gathered his flame force. Bam! Facing the largest rock, he quickly swung his arm and punched straight at it. Without any fancy moves, he punched the uneven surface of the greenish-gray rock. His terrifying muscles bulged out one by one, and his greenish-black veins were conspicuous. Scarlet flames that were close to white erupted in an instant. Boom! Amidst the loud noise, the blue stone shattered into pieces and flew everywhere along with the chaotic flames. The other smaller stones and soil were blocked by the tumbling airwaves. They moved forward with difficulty for a while before falling down like rain, making popping sounds. Kaori Karasawa didn't care about the hidden weapons that were flying towards her. She arched her body slightly and suddenly swung her right arm backwards, swinging the fist that was on the left side of her waist. With a bang, a white mark appeared and a strong wind swept up, causing the flying rocks to fall powerlessly. Her arm seemed to have turned into a Japanese katana, slicing through the air barrier at high speed towards Lu Cheng. Her left hand followed and pushed forward as though she was going for a second attack. Lu Cheng, who didn't dodge in a hurry, didn't panic in the face of this attack. He raised his left arm quickly and parried the attack, forming a crystalline layer of ice on the surface of his arm. Crack! The glowing katana chopped down, shattering the layers of ice armor and touching Lu Cheng's muscles, tendons, and bones. However, it was neutralized by his strength and blocked firmly. At this moment, the left hand that Kaori Karasawa had pushed forward didn't hit the enemy. Instead, she pressed on her own right arm to reinforce it with her strength. Lu Cheng immediately felt a heavy pressure. His left arm began to tremble and retracted uncontrollably. His weak point was forcefully squeezed out and his frame was half destroyed. That wasn't the end. Kaori Karasawa pressed and flicked her left hand towards his face. The glowing white light condensed into a sharp blade. Lu Cheng misjudged and couldn't block with his right hand in time. He leaned back and bent his waist, causing his opponent's left palm reverse grab to hit the air, shooting a ray of white light into the distance. While leaning back, Lu Cheng tightened his right leg and kicked it up, preparing for a counterattack. His martial arts shoes burst into flames and flew out, heading straight for Kaori Karasawa's lower abdomen before the back of his feet. Kaori Karasawa twisted her waist and back, creating a strong wind. After twisting her body, she flashed to the side of the enemy and avoided that fatal kick. Following that, she used the force of the rotation to swing her left arm towards Lu Cheng, who was standing up again. Fast and ruthless, it was like a tachi, creating a strong gust of wind. Lu Cheng responded with absolute reaction. He raised his arm, braced it, and sent his elbow out with a bang. It glowed with a crystalline brilliance and collided head-on with Kaori Karasawa's centrifugal takedown. Crack! Ice crystals shattered and fell. Kaori Karasawa's arm swung back while Lu Cheng's elbow trembled slightly. In the reverberation, Kaori Karasawa's right arm straightened and slashed 5 times at Lu Cheng's head, throat, chest, and other areas. Her cape fluttered wildly. Armed with Ice Mirror, Lu Cheng didn't panic. He responded with the Dan Force version of 24 Blizzard Strikes, countering chaos with chaos and attack with attack. Bam, 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 bam. Amidst the continuous sounds of explosions, chi flew and flames splashed like red rain. In the midst of the battle, Lu Cheng was getting fiercer and fiercer. Just as he was about to gain the upper hand, an extremely dangerous premonition suddenly rose in his heart. Without thinking, he leaned back again, even deeper than before, nearing the teppanyaki bridge. At that moment, he saw a ray of light flash past his face in a terrifying manner, leaving behind an obvious white wave of air. Boom! A loud explosion followed, causing Lu Cheng's ears to ring and his organs to sway. He almost fell. Shinjai Sek's Flying Dragon Takedown. If it weren't for his ability to sense danger, he wouldn't have been able to dodge or block this sudden strike. Chapter 481. As the trump card of the Shinjai sect, the Flying Dragon Takedown's greatest strength wasn't its speed or agility, but its lack of prior warning, making it impossible to predict. If one were to rely solely on absolute reaction, by the time they noticed it, it would already be too late to dodge or parry. With this sword move, the Shinjai sect was firmly seated as the #1 swordsmanship in Japan. No one could shake their position. They were even on par with the likes of Amaterasu Shrine and Yakusha Zen Temple. They were one of the major powers that ruled over Japan, not something the ultimate Hadu sect, which had only risen to fame in recent decades, could compare to. Of course, the ultimate Hadu sect, which was able to climb all the way to the top in terms of combat strength, wasn't weak either. Logically speaking, the Flying Dragon Takedown shouldn't have regained its former glory in modern society. You lack prior warning? That's fine. I can find 50 or even 100 battle videos of the Flying Dragon Takedown and replay them frame by frame. I'm sure I can find something useful, right? However, logic was one thing. Ever since the introduction of the video function, no one had discovered the signs of the Flying Dragon Takedown. Perhaps someone had already discovered it, but kept it a secret, intending to keep it as a trump card against the Shinjai sect. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, had only been exposed to relevant videos since the start of the King of Youth League. It had been at most 10 days since then, so how could he have discovered his opponent's secret? Unlike Vhagar, he hadn't distanced himself from the Flying Dragon takedown for 2 reasons. Firstly, he wasn't strong enough, and his footwork hadn't reached an unbelievable level. Even if he were to engage in a skirmish battle, he would quickly fall into Kaori Karasawa's rhythm. Secondly, he was confident that he could detect it in advance and evade it with his amazing premonition of danger. Who knew that when the time came, he would still be dodging awkwardly. Although he had detected it in advance, the speed of the Flying Dragon takedown had exceeded his expectations. That slash seemed to have created the illusion of a hypersonic barrier. When Kaori Karasawa was at the level of a physical invulnerability expert and wielded a specially forged legendary weapon, it wasn't impossible for her to reach that level. Boom! The shockwave from the Flying Dragon takedown expanded to both sides, stirring up a violent gust of wind. It was so strong that it almost blew Lu Cheng off his feet. At this moment, the ice mirror in his mind naturally reflected Kaori Karasawa, who was a few centimeters away. She retracted her trembling right arm, her sleeves fluttering like butterflies, revealing a section of her fair skin. It was obvious that she was carrying a heavy burden and would need some time to recover before she could continue her attack. However, Kaori Karasawa's left leg had tensed up and her knee was bent. She was about to kick one of the legs that supported her entire body. She had learned her lesson from the previous incident. She would not allow Lu Cheng to take advantage of the situation and lift her leg. She wanted him to bend down and never come back. Pa! While Kaori Karasawa straightened her knee and kicked out with her left leg, Lu Cheng controlled his center of gravity and continued to lean backwards. His waist and back bent again. He straightened his left leg and turned it into a soft whip. He whipped it up from the bottom, standing on one leg and not swaying at all. Bang! The tip of her foot hit the instep, setting off a burst of sparks. The remnants of her martial arts shoes were torn into pieces and Lu Cheng's lift was interrupted. Extending his left leg, Lu Cheng wanted to use the momentum to straighten his back and stand up again. However, Kaori Karasawa was prepared. Just as her left leg was about to land on the ground, she tightened her muscles and straightened her spine. She leaped into the air and launched a series of kicks with her right leg, aiming for the opponent's only support point. In this situation, if Lu Cheng tried to stand up, he would not be able to exert any strength. Even with the ice armor on his right leg, he would inevitably suffer some damage. This would cause him to limp for the rest of the battle, and not be able to contend against an opponent who was stronger than him. However, if he tried to block with his leg, he would lose his final support point and completely lose his stance. At this critical juncture, Lu Cheng's mind was as calm as an ice lake or a round mirror. Many thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. He gave up on the idea of straightening his body and fell backwards even more violently. With this fall, he supported himself with both hands and did a backflip. Taking advantage of the momentum, his right leg struck Kaori Karasawa's foot with a crisp sound, forcefully causing her to deviate from her original trajectory and fall to the side. With a backflip, Lu Cheng steadied himself and met his opponent who was closing in on him again. At this moment, Kaori Karasawa's arm had recovered. She slashed with her twin blades, splitting the air and striking at 5 different spots on her opponent. In the eyes of the audience, the condensed white light seemed to form a constellation. Lu Cheng flexed his joints, stretched his fascia, and used explosive force to hold his ground. He fought and fought with his opponent at the same time, almost circling the entire arena. Loud bangs rang out one after another, stirring up the emotions of the audience and making their blood boil. Amidst the continuous explosions of flames, frost, and white light, Lu Cheng tried to find an opportunity to use severe warning and internal explosion punch. He also tried to use army formula and fighting formula. However, Kaori Karasawa's mind's eye was strong. Once she sensed a change in her opponent's rhythm, or by retreating, she would have sufficient time to prepare. She would avoid the front, attack from the back, or attack from the side, making it impossible for Lu Cheng to succeed. Compared to Vhagar, Muko Yamashita, and the rest, this beautiful girl who only appeared once every 3,000 years had a stronger mental cultivation. Her fighting style was also gentler. She knew when to yield and when not to attack and when not to dodge. This gave Lu Cheng a deeper understanding of the details of the battle between Peng Liyun and Ran Li 2 days ago. They rarely used simplified physical invulnerability or other secret arts. Most of the time, they relied on normal moves, their own force, and Dan-stage explosive force to fight. It wasn't that they didn't want to use them, but that they didn't have the opportunity. If they forced it, they would expose their flaws and give their opponent a chance to take advantage of. With this knowledge, he completely suppressed the impatience in his heart and fought more steadily. Moves such as snow cover, ice burning, cold bite, aurora, and other moves were used one by one at the right time. Sometimes, he used them together with force concentration. The more he fought, the more refined his moves became. In the end, he even felt like he could use them at will. At most, we'll just compete on stamina. Kaori Karasawa's sharp senses detected this and was prepared to interrupt her opponent's transformation. After 2 moves, ripples suddenly appeared in Lu Cheng's heart. He had a strong premonition of danger. At the same time as the ripples appeared, he vaguely heard an almost inaudible cracking sound. Not good. His chi and blood retracted abruptly. Along with his body, he curled up into a ball. Just as he crouched down, Kaori Karasawa pulled her left arm out from her waist, leaving afterimages and parting the air. A ray of light flashed and a white airwave formed. Loud booms erupted at the same time, setting off violent sound waves and strong winds in all directions. Flying Dragon takedown again. His scalp went numb and his ears vibrated. Lu Cheng's Dan force exploded like a volcano erupting, propping up his entire body. His muscles bulged with strength. Twisting his muscles, tendons, and veins were all exposed. He bounced up, clenching his right fist, half charging and half pounding. At this moment, the audience felt as though they were witnessing a trapped dragon rising to the heavens, or the launch of a rocket. Kaori Karasawa's right palm formed a knife and chopped down at the right time. With a floating glow, it landed squarely on the surface of his greenish-black fist. Bam! Her left arm trembled. Unable to withstand Lu Cheng's all-out attack in her hasty parry, her body swayed backwards. She decided to take advantage of the situation and retreat. Her steps were nimble and her posture nimble. Lu Cheng wasn't going to let this opportunity slip by. While the empty front row of spectators suffered a crack from the missed Flying Dragon takedown, he raised his hands, formed a seal, and outlined an ancient character. All right. His silhouette shot out like lightning, leaving 2 distinct footprints on the ground. He closed the distance between him and Kaori Karasawa in an instant. Seeing her opponent's face clear in an instant, the smell of his sweat wafting into her nose and the sound of his breathing entering her ears, Kaori Karasawa didn't panic. She raised her right arm again and chopped straight ahead. Whoosh! Amidst the ear-piercing friction, Lu Cheng stopped abruptly. His feet created layers of spider webs as his body stopped an arm's length away. At this distance, Kaori Karasawa's knife was bound to miss. Then, she would have to endure Lu Cheng's frenzied attacks. However, her eyes suddenly lit up. Her right palm that cut through the air released a bright white glow. Bam! With one chop, the air between her and Lu Cheng was completely destroyed. In an instant, the air surged wildly to both sides, creating an area with very low air pressure. Xinjai sect, vacuum takedown. Lu Cheng felt a terrifying suction force from the area in front of him. He couldn't help but stumble forward. All he could hear was the sound of the wind swirling around him. Kaori Karasawa's follow-up moves came one after another. She tensed her left leg and chopped out horizontally. Dragging a razor-like white light, she whipped her opponent who was leaning forward. Lu Cheng adjusted his muscles in time, channeling the accumulated inertia into his leg. It was the same whip, but with a different luster. Crack! The layer of ice shattered. In his haste to block, he was evenly matched with his opponent. However, being evenly matched meant that he wasn't able to take advantage of his opponent's opening. The battle reverted back to the previous situation. Kaori Karasawa used her hands and legs as knives and displayed her swordsmanship to the fullest, forcing Lu Cheng to take a defensive stance. There was no time for him to use the 9 words formula or simplified physical invulnerability. Furthermore, she could vaguely sense that her opponent could predict her Flying Dragon takedown. She didn't dare to blindly attack again. Instead, she waited patiently for an opportunity where her opponent couldn't dodge and could only take it head-on. Lu Cheng was waiting too. He felt that the almost inaudible cracking sound was the movement of compressing force, bones, tendons, and muscles. It was most likely the precursor to the flying dragon takedown. With this and his premonition of danger, it seemed like he could try to use simplified physical invulnerability to take the flying dragon takedown head-on. Through an intense collision, he could create an opportunity like just now. Bam, bam, bam. The sounds of collisions continued. Both parties seemed to have calmed down and were fighting with unusual patience. They were both waiting. Chapter 482. Kaori Karasawa's chi could be applied to her palms, arms, legs, feet, and other body parts to increase the power of her attacks. If her opponent was hit directly on the body, even if he was able to counteract the attack, he could still suffer injuries such as tendons and veins, torn muscles, and even broken bones. Therefore, when Vagar fought with her, he had to cover his fists with the power of electricity at all times to form a glove to shatter the scattered light and deflect the tip of the blade before finally completing the clash of powers. Lu Cheng's ice armor was more suitable for such battles than the lightning gloves, as it could effectively slow down the sharpness and ferocity of his opponent's attacks. The flaming gloves produced by Emperor Yen Force were similar to Thunderbolt, as they could burn the white light and explode the opponent, turning defense into offense. If he didn't have these two supernatural abilities, he would have to be more careful and only block the non-tip of the blade. For example, he would lift his palm from the bottom up, strike his wrist from the side, or push his stance. Although that would make him look like a grandmaster, it would put him in a more passive position. If he wasn't careful, he would be injured and be forced to leave the arena. Every time there was an explosion, sparks would fly and ice crystals would fall. Lu Cheng relied on his instinctive strength to battle Kaori Karasawa fiercely. Banging sounds reverberated in the air, arousing the passion in most of the audience and igniting their urge to vent. Although Lu Cheng's strength, speed, and agility were slightly inferior to his opponent, there wasn't much of a difference after his physique was fully upgraded. As long as he could be patient and defend steadily, Kaori Karasawa wouldn't make any risky attempts. It would be difficult for her to break through his stance and seize the opportunity for victory. Once she did, she would also expose her weaknesses and give Lu Cheng hope of a counterattack. Bam, 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 bam. The battle was at a stalemate. Lu Cheng, who was at a disadvantage, defended steadily and integrated his Dan stage martial arts. Kaori Karasawa, who had gained the upper hand, was similarly calm and composed, as though she was slowly chipping away at her opponent. After a full 7 to 8 minutes, both of them had unavoidably used up a lot of stamina. However, Lu Cheng had the automatic replenishment of his Jindan. Apart from a slight delay in his reaction due to mental fatigue, he didn't falter in any other aspect. In stark contrast to Kaori Karasawa, he was gradually showing signs of turning the situation around. Just then, Kaori Karasawa's right arm transformed into a glowing katana and slashed out horizontally. The moment it came into contact with the ice armor on Lu Cheng's forearm, she suddenly exerted the force in her shoulder and spun her katana around the enemy's arm to execute the coil formula. Lu Cheng's arm was knocked away and his body swayed as if he was about to fall to the side. Now was the time. Tang Zixuan's eyes narrowed as she arched her back. A sense of extreme danger flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. His ears twitched slightly and he heard a barely audible clicking sound. It was like a sniper rifle being loaded or a retractable cannon rotating. In such a situation, his center of gravity was skewed and he couldn't jump up in time. If he squatted down or leaned back to dodge, Kaori Karasawa would definitely make a knife at his waist or make a quick downward slash. She wouldn't give him a chance to survive. Apart from falling to the side, dropping his stance and rolling on the ground like a lazy donkey, Lu Cheng seemed to have no other choice. However, he was already prepared. When the clicking sound came, he had already outlined the dark, cold, and devoid of any light or heat in his mind. When the premonition of danger erupted, layers of thunderclouds converged instantly. High temperatures and deafening booms broke the silent darkness and chill. Bam! Lu Cheng lowered his left arm and swung his forearm. Following the ripples created by the ice mirror, he threw a punch from his waist. The original version of Severe Warning. The reason why he chose this move was because he could add layers and layers of thick ice armor. Otherwise, with the terrifying power of Flying Dragon Takedown, even if he hit his opponent and froze her thoughts, his left arm would be more or less crippled. Without 1 or 2 months of recuperation, he definitely wouldn't be able to recover it. Just as the sparkling and translucent fist was about to strike out, a ray of light suddenly flashed and slashed at the surface of Lu Cheng's fist, colliding head-on with it, giving it no chance to react at all. After the ray of light, the air was split into two and condensed into air waves. Light converged and dyed the air white, just like the scene after a jet plane swept past. Boom! A loud bang erupted, setting off a violent wind wave that slapped at Lu Cheng, shaking his earlobe and ear gauge. Bam! Lu Cheng couldn't hear the sound of the thick ice armor on his left fist shattering, but he could feel the terrifying force on his body. It was as though he had been hit by a high-speed train. His arm was numb, his muscles swollen and cracked, and his tendons and veins were in sharp pain. Creak! He couldn't stop himself from retreating. His feet rubbed against the ground, leaving two obvious marks that looked like ravines. Lu Cheng spat out a mouthful of blood. His left arm was trembling, and he couldn't exert any strength. A bone-deep wound appeared on his fist. The power of one slash was earth-shattering. The terrifying power of Flying Dragon Takedown was so exaggerated. In the live thread, everyone's reaction was even more exaggerated. They exclaimed almost simultaneously, F***CK, he blocked Flying Dragon Takedown. I Zhao Riqian am in awe. He actually took Flying Dragon Takedown head-on, and he did it. What AF King Beast. Sky-shattering roar, no problem. In a few of Japan's big forums, there were similar astonishment. He predicted Flying Dragon Takedown? He made a prediction with his body and blocked Flying Dragon Takedown. I think I saw a demonic beast. No, that's Ultraman. This is Kaori-chan's first time being blocked by someone's Flying Dragon Takedown, right? Even though he doesn't have a blade, he would still die if Kaori-chan's Flying Dragon Takedown landed a direct hit on his body. Even if he's a monster who has cultivated chi, he would still be seriously injured and need a few months to recover. How dare he block it so boldly? Amidst the wind and waves, Kaori Karasawa stood in place. Her left arm was trembling non-stop, covered in a layer of white frost. Her beautiful eyes had lost their luster, and she seemed to be in a daze. Severe warning, knocking on heart-questioning sect. Lu Cheng couldn't be bothered to check his own body. He endured his injuries, took a deep breath, and gathered his force, spirit, and various other uncomfortable feelings to balance the ice and fire and form a Dan. Boom! His Dan chi gushed out. Lu Cheng's legs expanded. He bent his knees and straightened them, propelling him forward and pouncing towards his opponent, whose clothes had turned into short sleeves. Drip, drip, drip. From the cracked ground to Kaori Karasawa's front, the dripping blood and sweat could only be found at the ends of his head and tail. It was a testament to the speed and ferocity of his leap. Bam! The muscles and skin on Lu Cheng's left fist contracted, stopping the bleeding. Shaking his right arm, he clenched his fist and hammered down diagonally. With a whoosh, his fist burned with a layer of crimson, almost white flames. Emperor Yen Force. In order to seize the opportunity, Lu Cheng didn't prepare the fighting formula, army formula, or simplified physical invulnerability formula. At this moment, Kaori Karasawa's eyes were still in a daze, making the otakus from Japan feel sorry for her. However, her body had already reacted naturally. She swung her right arm backward, drawing a razor-like white glow, slashing right into the raging flames. Eye of the heart! Boom! The force exploded, sending waves of flames tumbling. Kaori Karasawa's black hair was disheveled in the wind. Her body was pushed back by the shockwave and she staggered backwards. It was only then that her eyes regained their luster. Lu Cheng swung his right arm and bounced back. His hands formed a seal in front of him, pointing at himself. His expression suddenly turned solemn as he outlined the words in his mind. He bellowed, "Fighting!" His muscles expanded, showcasing the beauty of strength. They intertwined, protruding veins of varying sizes. Lu Cheng stretched his back and threw out his right fist in an extremely barbaric manner. Bam! The punch pierced through the air, propelling his body forward rapidly. He closed the distance between them and approached Kaori Karasawa's abdomen. Kaori Karasawa's heart suddenly emptied. It was as if she had returned to that quiet Zen hall, back to the time when she was focused on arranging flowers and making tea. Her eyes shone and her clothes suddenly swelled up like a balloon that had been filled. Bam! Her left palm formed a blade and slashed out with a slash. Her clothes suddenly shriveled and clung to her body. Shinjai sect, Kasaya takedown. Bam! Her tiny muscles and veins bulged, forming an extreme contrast with the flickering glow on her fair palm. The fighting formula was incomparably violent. In the blink of an eye, Kaori Karasawa was sent stumbling backward. Although her body was light, her legs were heavy, leaving several footprints in the ground. Lu Cheng's body swayed. Immediately, he gathered his chi and blood, exploded his Dan force, and pounced forward again, not leaving a single gap. Seeing that her enemy was already in front of her before she could regain her footing, Kaori Karasawa's body emitted a soft cracking sound. This time, it was more obvious than the flying dragon takedown and ended faster. Bam! She pulled her right arm out in front of her and swung her fist diagonally. It was so fast that it left afterimages, leaving a trail of light as it broke through the air current. The weakened version of Flying Dragon Takedown, Flying Bird Takedown. It required faster preparation before striking, but its speed was correspondingly much weaker. The same went for its power. However, Kaori Karasawa combined them into a terrifying killer move. With that, she achieved a burst of output in a short period of time and defeated Vagar. That was the combo of Flying Bird Takedown, Triple Return of Swallows. Lu Qing knew that this was a critical moment. His lunging momentum halted abruptly. Expanding his right arm, he swung it quickly and threw out a punch. Bam! Fist and palm collided, creating a deafening sound in the air. Lu Cheng had just used the momentum to pull back when he heard a cracking sound. He saw Kaori Karasawa's left arm striking out in quick succession. It was just as fast, just as ruthless, and just as covered in white light. Bam! He forcefully exploded the force in his left shoulder and swung his arm. Finally recovering from the loss of consciousness, he spread his fingers and grabbed at the enemy's palm blade. Whoosh! Amidst the sharp scraping sound, Kaori Karasawa's left palm sank and her right arm struck again. It was still a reverse chop, and it was still dragging out airwaves. Triple Return of Swallows. Lu Cheng didn't have time to perform force concentration. He could only rely on the senses of Ice Mirror to raise his arm and block hastily. Bam! His arm trembled and bounced away. His ice armor shattered inch by inch and his fascia was injured. However, he couldn't help but feel a sense of joy. He managed to block Kaori Karasawa's Triple Return of Swallows. That combo had taken a lot out of her and put a heavy burden on her. This should be enough to turn the tide of the battle, right? At this moment, Kaori Karasawa's eyes were filled with pain. Her left palm that was caught by Lu Cheng suddenly bounced up and broke through the air barrier with a cracking sound. It was so fast that it left afterimages behind. Shinjai Sek's forbidden move, Quadruple Return of Swallows. Even though Lu Cheng's ice mirror reflected it, his reflexes couldn't keep up. Just as he raised his left arm, his opponent's palm had already stopped right in front of his throat. The referee's eyes were filled with admiration. He raised his hand and announced, Kaori Karasawa wins. Lu Cheng instantly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His heart was filled with a myriad of emotions. Kaori Karasawa bent over and panted heavily. She had actually forgotten the most important etiquette in Japan. Quadruple Return of Swallows wasn't a move that was easy to withstand. It was the same for both the opponent and herself. Masa Otaki, a researcher from the Japanese delegation, was looking at the blood on the stage. She was so excited that she couldn't wait to pounce on it. Kaori-chan, Kaori-chan, go step on it and bring it back. After Kaori Karasawa had caught her breath, Lu Cheng exchanged a bow with her. He then shook his head and turned to walk down the stone steps. Along the way, he remembered the leader's instructions to not leave a single drop of blood or sweat behind. Hence, he took a detour and walked 2 more steps. When his back view descended the stone steps, the blood on the ground spontaneously combusted and swayed unsteadily. Masa Otaki's smile froze on her face. Chapter 483. Lu Cheng had just returned to the spectator stand when the flames were extinguished. Peng Liyun extended his right fist with a smile and gave him a fist bump. Impressive. There was no consolation, only praise. Impressive. And Chao Yang did the same with similar words and actions. Renly gave him a thumbs up after the fist bump. Thank you. Lu Cheng shook his head with a smile, the gloominess in his heart dissipating significantly. At this moment, the leader, Zhong Ningtao, asked with concern, "How are you? How's your injury? Do you need to go to the emergency room?" He had seen Lu Cheng spit out blood just now. Although the wound on his left fist had stopped bleeding, it still looked sinister. "It's fine. It's just a superficial wound. It'll heal on its own in a couple of days." Lu Cheng waved his left fist and added, "The internal injury isn't serious either. I didn't take it head-on, but instead took a step back. I'll take some medicine later. I'll be fine before the transformation is complete." Of course, he wouldn't be able to use his full strength in the third and fourth place matches the day after tomorrow. Luckily, his opponent was Gusai. That's good. Zhong Ningtao heaved a sigh of relief and pointed to the changing room. "Let's wash it first." Lu Cheng nodded and took back his phone. He saw Yen Zhika's dumbfounded expression. "This is the first time I've seen Kaori Karasawa use 4 aerial return." Lu Cheng thought for a moment and replied, scratching head expression, "That's true. I've never seen her use it before in all the videos I've watched. I've only heard that Xinzhai sect has such a combo." Yen Zhika replied, "Before she mastered Qi, she probably wouldn't have been able to hit 4 times in a row. After she mastered Qi, she hasn't encountered a situation where she needs to use quadruple return of swallows. To be able to force Kaori Karasawa to use quadruple return of swallows, Brother Chung is the best." "You're beating around the bush just to comfort me?" Lu Cheng burst out laughing, his mood even more soothed. He sent messages as he walked, keeping an eye on the road from the corner of his eyes. He walked steadily. Peng Liyun and the rest followed behind, intending to wait in the changing room. It was quite a mess outside as people were leaving. "What else?" Yen Zhika rolled her eyes. "If you say that Kaori Karasawa is very strong and that it's normal for you to lose, or if you hug her tighter and tighter, then you say that it's not a crime for a man to cry? The earlier we can get 3rd place, the earlier we can go home. We'll see our little fairy in September." "You make it sound like it's easy for me to beat Gusai," replied Lu Cheng. "Isn't that so?" Yen Zhika replied with a blank expression. "Let's not talk about the injuries. Gusai has them too. The main thing is that I want to experience the heart reflection punch and the fist of the 6 paths of reincarnation." "Understood. You want to learn from Peng Liyun? It's only been a few days, and you've been led astray by him? Are you worthy of me?" Yen Zhika joked and scolded him. "After this, I don't know when I'll be able to meet an expert from the Theravada sect," Lu Cheng casually explained. Normally speaking, he would always give it his all. Yes, it's good to experience more." Yen Zhika sent a cute emoji of a little monster licking ice cream. "But you have to remember that the difference between 3rd and 4th place is 100,000 renminbi. F***CK. I don't want to experience any more. I just want to defeat Gusai as soon as possible," replied Lu Cheng humorously. After that, Yen Zhika asked a few more questions about his injuries. After confirming that he was fine, she went back to class with a peace of mind. As he approached the bathroom, Lu Cheng browsed through the live stream post. Seeing that there weren't many regrets but many exclamations, he quickly explained, "I was too engrossed and forgot to take pictures. Yes, I was too engrossed in the fight. This excuse can only be used once. Haha, I also forgot about other things. It's not your fault, little tiger." Wonton Seller replied, waving handkerchief expression. "Yeah, it was too F***king exciting. Kaori Karasawa's Japanese swordsmanship is amazing. Lu Cheng's prediction is even better," replied Unparalleled Dragon King. "I suspect that Lu Cheng has discovered the signs of the Flying Dragon takedown." "That's insane," said Pig Riding Knight. Looking at their discussion, Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief. He planned to start anew after taking a shower. Where are Yen Xiaoling and Brahman? At this moment, he suddenly realized that his 2 loyal fans weren't among the communicators in the live stream post. Puzzled, Lu Cheng entered his name and entered the fan forum. As his gaze swept across the forum, he suddenly froze. This was because there were many similar posts on the front page of the forum, but they were from different people. Yen Xiaoling, Brahmin, Nya Chi Chi, Bull Demon King, all the good names are taken by dogs, and other IDs lined up neatly and said, "You're great. You're great. You're great." Lu Cheng swiped his thumb and saw that it wasn't just the front page. They had been posting screen after screen since the end of the competition. Even though they knew it was useless, they still tried their best. Lu Cheng's vision blurred again. He was exceptionally moved by their pure love and unrepentant support. They no longer paid attention to him on impulse or for fun. They came from different corners of the world. They were strangers, yet so familiar. Lu Cheng took a deep breath, put down his phone, turned on the shower, and washed off the sweat and blood on his body. His mood gradually calmed down. Looking at the hideous wound on his fist, he couldn't help but feel relieved that there was no live stream in China. Otherwise, his mother would nag him to death if she didn't see him vomiting blood and suffering a deep wound that exposed his bones. I'll video call her later. I'll take the initiative to explain the situation and make it light. Otherwise, someone watching the live stream will mention it to her. It's never a bad idea to take precautions. After the shower, Lu Qing ate the pills for internal injuries that Yan Zheka had strongly requested him to bring along. He also applied a large band-aid to his wound. After changing his clothes and walking out of the bathroom, he saw that Peng Liyun wasn't in a daze but was playing a game on his phone. Remembering the flying dragon takedown, he quickly reminded him. Before Kaori Karasawa's flying dragon takedown, there will be a slight cracking sound. It sounds like she is compressing her fascia, bones, muscles, and force. He was lucky to have noticed it. Without the ice mirror, who would notice the almost inaudible sound during an intense fight? Similarly, if he didn't have a premonition of danger and knew that Kaori Karasawa was about to make a move, even with the ice mirror, he would have subconsciously ignored the tiny noise. He wouldn't have heard the cracking sound at all. It wasn't for nothing that the signs of flying dragon takedown hadn't been discovered for so many years. Therefore, even if Peng Liyun knew about it beforehand, it was hard to say if he could grasp it. Peng Liyun forgot about the game, lifted his head, and nodded thoughtfully. "I see," beside him, and Chaoyang smiled and said, "I feel like Kaori Karasawa's win wasn't worth it. For a few 100,000, you discovered one of the most important secrets of the Xinjai sect. Now that you mention it, even I'm a little scared," replied Lu Cheng half-jokingly. "If they know that I discovered the signs of flying dragon takedown, will they come after me?" At this point, he answered his own question. "Not afraid. If they dare to come after me, I'll post it online. Let's see who's more ruthless." Peng Liyun chuckled at his words and started spacing out. After a long while, he finally came back to his senses. His expression changed. *T. I screwed over my teammates. Haha, you're only suited for single-player games. While Lu Cheng was complaining in his mind, Renli took the lead and pulled open the door to the changing room. She wanted to lead the way, but Zhong Ningtao quickly stopped her. Creak. The door opened. Renli saw a mixed-blood beauty leading a camera team. "Hee, we meet again." Catherine smiled amiably. Renli tilted her head. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't recall where she had seen her before. She could only pretend that they were familiar. "Here for another interview?" After saying this, she finally remembered who she was. Realization dawned on her. She added, "You're the reporter who spoke Chinese but didn't say it. You embarrassed Lu Cheng." At the mention of this, everyone burst into laughter. Lu Cheng scratched the back of his head and blushed again. After that incident, he had browsed Shengxiang's website in an attempt to find news reports. Unfortunately, he couldn't understand Shengxiang's language and could only give up. Catherine smiled. "That time, I only wrote a simple news report. Today, I'm here for an interview." Two of the wildcard team made it to the semi-finals, while one made it to the finals. An interview was necessary. Otherwise, how could they set the atmosphere for the finals? That's good, that's good. Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief. He smiled as he watched Peng Liyun become the main character of this interview. With the experience from before, the interview this time went by the book without any accidents. At the end of the interview, Catherine said with a smile, "Lu Cheng, you have a nickname in Japan." "What?" blurted Lu Cheng. He immediately regretted it. He should have asked if the nickname was good. If it wasn't, He wouldn't have listened. Kathleen smiled sweetly and said, "The demonic beast from Nebula M78. When she finished, she saw Lu Cheng's face darken a few shades. After the interview, the wild card team returned to the hotel. Everyone went to their own rooms and did their own things. After the video call with Qifeng ended, Lu Cheng began to recall every detail of the battle with Kaori Karasawa. He analyzed the situation and summed up his gains and losses. Yen Zheka liked this kind of thing. She interacted with him from the perspective of a bystander. The next morning, Lu Cheng, who had yet to recover from his injuries, continued his metamorphosis. During the sparring session in the morning, he held back and only did a warm-up. When they gathered for lunch, Zhong Ningtao clapped his hands and said, "We have an event in the afternoon. The organizing committee has invited us to visit the Golden Buddha Temple and interact with some of the monks and young boxers. This is an official event for the King of Youth Pro League. The top 16 should try their best to attend." "Why didn't you mention this before?" asked In Chaoyang, puzzled. Zhong Ningtao shook his head. "I don't know why either. This kind of official event happens every year. In the past, it was held after the finals. Who knew it would be brought forward this time?" "Yeah. I don't have anything going on in the afternoon anyway." Peng Liyun agreed with great interest after returning from outer heaven. Lu Cheng and Chaoyang and Renli followed suit. Chapter 484. The official activities of the King of Four Nations were split into 3 parts. The first was to visit the famous Golden Buddha Temple in Fulua. The second was to listen to the real living Arhat Zhao Wu preaching, and the third was to train with young monks and martial arts masters. Other than the places where filming was prohibited, the media followed the entire process. In the afternoon, Lu Cheng and the others entered the temple under the scorching sun and the steamer-like atmosphere. They admired the exotic Zen forest up close, which was very different from the Buddhist temples in China. The buildings here were sharp and majestic, giving off the characteristics of primitive Buddhism. As the Theravada saw Mahayana as a heresy, they didn't recognize the Bodhisattva or the many Buddhas mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures. The main hall here only enshrined Sakyamuni and his disciples, such as Mahakasyapa and others. Outside the main hall, there was an urn with Brahma, the god of 4 faces, guarding the door. His golden body was heavy and glowing, his 8 arms extended and holding objects. As it was an official activity, Lu Cheng, Peng Liyun and the rest wore the representative martial arts suit with white background and red vertical stripes. It was a stark contrast to Kaori Karasawa, Muko Yamashita and the rest who wore traditional clothes and didn't mind the heat. Vagar, on the other hand, was still wearing his big brimmed hat and general uniform. He walked majestically and looked as domineering as ever. It was as though he had forgotten the scars of losing to Kaori Karasawa, and the fact that he couldn't even force her to use the quadruple aerial attack. Banam was dressed in a typical Nanjing martial arts suit. His hands and feet were wrapped in white bandages. He habitually walked at the back of the group, at a place where no one would notice. Waku and Gusai, one thin and one fat, were dressed in eye-catching monk robes that complemented the surroundings. During the visit, they were divided into groups of 3 to 5 according to the representative group. There was a clear boundary between each group. Lu Cheng took out his phone and acted like a responsible tourist. As long as there was a place to take photos, regardless of the quality of the photos, he would take them. He planned to share them with his wife at night. As for In Chaoyang and Ren Li, their only purpose was to wait for him to steal the photos. Peng Liyun? A guy whose phone camera was broken and who was distracted from time to time was only fit to be a salted fish. Just after 3:30 p.m., they ended their tour and entered a building that looked like a lecture hall. At the head of the hall sat a sallow, emaciated, and old monk. His eyes were half closed, and he looked plain and unadorned. There wasn't anything special about him. He was Master Zhao Wu, who had achieved the initial state of Luohan and was equivalent to someone who had just entered the physical invulnerability state. Zhao Wu didn't even lift his eyelids. His attitude was calm. Seeing that everyone had gathered, he started to speak in the Pali language that Buddha used to write the scriptures. The 4 middle-aged monks standing on his left and right translated in English, Chinese, Japanese, and Shengxiang language at the same time. Their voices overlapped and echoed in the meditation hall. There was an inexplicable deep and distant, solemn, and enlightening feeling. Lu Cheng listened with great interest, trying to broaden his knowledge. But as he listened, he began to have doubts. Master Zhao Wu wasn't talking about Buddhist scriptures or stories, but the actual cultivation method of the 16 insight wisdom. Starting from understanding the body and mind, step by step, using metaphors to explain, it made people feel that they could really learn something from it. It can't be. Is the cultivation method of the 16 insight wisdom so worthless that he would just casually teach it to us? Lu Cheng moved closer to Peng Liyun and whispered. This was equivalent to the core strength of the ice sect and the fire sect. Peng Liyun tilted his head and looked at him. His lips opened and closed. His voice was inaudible, but it went straight into Lu Cheng's ears. He's only talking about the basics. He won't talk about the more profound content of the 16 insight wisdom. If you're really interested and walk on this path, he'll definitely welcome you with open arms and legs. He'll personally guide you and teach you. Seeing that Lu Cheng was enlightened, he continued, It's not bad to listen to it. The 16 insight wisdom isn't recorded in any Buddhist scriptures. It's a practical cultivation method that was refined by the eminent monks after Sakyamuni who cultivated Arhat Buddhahood. Yes, they're called saints. It's very interesting. Lu Cheng sized Peng Liyun up and smiled curiously. It's normal for me to listen to it. You're a Taoist disciple, half a practitioner. Why are you here to listen to it? I've decided to give Peng Liyun a nickname. He'll be called Taoist. A Taoist who's always in a trance. Peng Liyun laughed softly. Since the Song dynasty, there have been many mutual interpretations of Buddhist scriptures, perfecting each other's philosophical system. Some of them also fused with each other's cultivation method. If I listen to Hinayana, I might be able to comprehend by analogy. As he spoke, he seemed to have thought of something. His eyes started to drift and his thoughts were no longer focused. Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. He straightened his body and raised his head. Coincidentally, he saw Master Zhao Wu looking at him and nodding his head slightly. He wasn't angry, sullen, happy or smiling. However, that pair of half-closed eyes suddenly opened. At the same time when they opened, Lu Cheng's eyes seemed to be filled with radiance. He saw Master Zhao Wu's skin turn golden. He grew 3 heads and extended 6 arms. His entire body was emitting flames, sacred and dignified. It can't be? Is there really such a thing as the golden body of Arhat? Lu Cheng was deeply shocked. He subconsciously formed an ice mirror to reflect his surroundings. He suspected that his senses and spirit were affected by Master Zhao Wu's mystical abilities and that he was hallucinating. In the ice mirror, the water shimmered. A golden body Arhat with 3 heads and 6 arms shone brightly. It's real. Lu Cheng didn't believe in superstition. He simply did a force concentration to balance the rotation of ice and fire, forming a miniature starry sky, where darkness and light, cold and high temperature coexisted. This was to maximize the subtle premonition that had merged with his body. The surroundings seemed to have become empty. As Lu Cheng released his force concentration, he looked at Zhao Wu again. He discovered that his muscles had already bulged into a streamlined shape. His skin was emitting a dark golden glow. However, where were the 3 heads, 6 arms? Where were the flames emitting from his entire body? No, in the void around him. His aura condensed as though it had materialized. Faintly, 2 blurry heads and 4 arms holding weapons appeared. At this point, Lu Cheng understood the gist of it. The golden body Arhat he saw earlier was half real and half fake. It was formed by the aura condensed by Master Zhao Wu's physical body and his powerful spirit. This is an expert of the same level as a physical invulnerability expert. Thinking back to the scene of Master in the White World, he was really a land immortal. As he thought about it, Lu Cheng's state of mind calmed down. He leisurely admired Zhao Wu's miraculous display. His gaze swept past Peng Liyun. He discovered that his eyes were out of focus and his expression was blank. He didn't know where he was wandering. He didn't care about the golden body Arhat at all. Master Zhao Wu's coquettish eyes were thrown at a blind man. Lu Cheng criticized silently. He shifted his gaze and saw Ranli looking at the seat of honor attentively. The light in her eyes flickered as though a storm was gathering. And Chao Yang was muttering to himself with a sentimental expression as though he was reciting a poem. Reciting a poem? Lu Cheng tilted his ears in surprise. He heard in Chao Yang reciting softly, "That year, I kowtowed and embraced the dust. Not for Buddha, but for your warmth. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but curse silently. Hee, this bunch of salted fish. They came here to listen to the scriptures for nothing. Well, except for Ran Li. I'll have to tell this to Cuckoo. It'll definitely make her laugh. At 4:10 p.m., the lecture ended. The group walked out of the meditation hall. Lu Cheng casually sized up Kaori Karasawa, Vagar and the rest. He wanted to see any reaction from witnessing the golden body Arhat from their faces. However, they were all determined people. Their expressions had already returned to normal. He couldn't see any clues. On the other hand, the other boxing masters and samurai were still in a daze. They were obviously in a great shock and were about to doubt their lives. Next was the tutorial session. According to the arrangement of the organizing committee, they were divided into 2 groups. A few female contestants went to guide the younger female boxing masters. The rest went to the dining hall to taste the monk's rice and wait for their turn. Worried that Ran Li would get lost, the leader Zhong Ningtao gave Lu Cheng a few words of advice before hurrying over. Muko Yamashita watched quietly and nodded his head slightly. Dining hall. The monk's rice was served one by one. The water was clear and the rice was coarse. It was extremely simple. Lu Cheng, Peng Liyun and Chaoyang each ate a few mouthfuls before stopping. Why would they torture themselves when they weren't hungry? Speaking of which, I'm starting to miss the various delicacies of my homeland. Lu Cheng swallowed his saliva. After a short while, the monk started to clean up the tableware. Muko Yamashita, who was not far away, glanced over from the corner of his eye. Seeing that the 3 of them had no objections and allowed the monk to take away the utensils in front of them, a smile appeared on his face unconsciously. This monk had already been bribed. The utensils they used would be directly collected by Otaki Mamatori. Although Lu Cheng and the rest had been eating out every day, they weren't pre-ordered. Hence, they couldn't be bribed in advance. Moreover, their leader would take care of things at the end. This time, the leader had already been transferred away. At this moment, Lu Cheng suddenly remembered something. He quickly stopped the monk who was about to leave with the utensils. He smiled at Peng Liyun and Chaoyang and said, "You guys are too careless. Where is this place?" "This is Nanyang. Sorcery is rampant and curses are everywhere. You can't leave anything closely related to yourself behind to prevent others from using it to cast spells." This was what he thought of according to the leader's instructions. Seeing that Peng Liyun and Chaoyang were in a daze, Lu Cheng proudly wiped the edge of the bowl he used and wiped the other utensils that were stained with his saliva. The dark flame flickered. It didn't burn the material, but it was slightly steaming. "That's a good move," Peng Liyun praised. To be able to use the flame to remove the traces without burning the utensils, this level of control was admirable. Lu Cheng's transformation should be complete soon, right? As he spoke, he stood up as well. A silvery white flame appeared in his hand. He wiped all the utensils that belonged to him and didn't leave anything else behind. Seeing this, and Chaoyang was eager to start as well. He hadn't cultivated his supernatural ability yet, so he could only destroy with special waves. In the end, he shamefully took out wet wipes. Muko Yamashita, who was not far away, watched silently, dumbfounded. While the female experts were giving guidance, a sudden gust of wind blew over, dispelling the dullness and teasing Ran Li's straight hair. After reaching 6th pin, each strand of her hair was very sturdy. Without external forces, it would be hard for it to fall. During guidance training, there was no need to tie up her hair. Just then, Kaori Karasawa, who was near her, quietly flicked her fingers. A twisting gust of wind was hidden in the natural environment, perfectly complementing the movements of the training girl. It twisted 2 strands of Ran Li's hair and silently tore them off, as if accidentally caused by the girl's moves. No one could train absolute reaction to their hair. 2 strands of black hair with hair follicles fell. Although Ran Li felt it, she didn't find it strange and continued to feed the training girl. Kaori Karasawa's expression became more relaxed, the smile on her face still as sweet as ever. After the guidance, she pretended that an item had fallen and rolled to the side. She walked over and bent down to pick it up. When Ran Li returned to the canteen, Lu Cheng told her about the Nanyang sorcery and curse voodoo and reminded her to be careful. Ran Li replied confidently, "That's nothing. I know curses too. You know curses too? Asked Lu Cheng, shocked. Yeah. There are some voodoo curses in the plague sect. It takes a long time to prepare and there's no time to use them in battle. Also, the materials that can be gathered are usually useless and often fail. However, it's 100% accurate for myself, said Ranli thoughtfully. I think I lost a few strands of hair just now. I can reverse the curse. At this point, she looked at Zhong Ningtao eagerly. Leader, I'd like to apply to go out and buy some materials. Damn, I didn't expect you to be this kind of Ranli. I can't afford to offend you. Lu Cheng couldn't help but wipe his cold sweat. She knows how to curse. That's not right. I think I can reflect curses. At this thought, he didn't say anything else. Together with Pang Liyun and Chao Yang and the rest, they headed to the square to guide the pugilists and acolytes who were at most 12 or 13 years old. Lu Cheng couldn't help but feel a little emotional when he saw their youthful but devoted expressions and their skillful but fierce movements. In China, this age was the first time they came into contact with martial arts. They were still at the stage of building the foundation and training their bodies. They were still a few years away from forming combat strength. It wasn't that long, but the whole society had come to a consensus that practicing martial arts at such a young age would interfere with their development and cause various negative consequences. It could also affect the child's mental health. During this process, quality education would be supplemented to prevent one or two of them from becoming illiterate. If their martial arts path was cut off in the future, they wouldn't become handicapped. However, this wasn't the case in Shengxiang. Most of them were poor and led a tough life. Although it wasn't to the extent that they didn't have a proper meal, they weren't much better off either. They had to work hard to support themselves from a young age. If they were lucky enough to be chosen to practice martial arts, it was a great thing. The earlier they could master it, the earlier they could have combat strength, and the earlier they could serve the nurturer. This was the common wish of all parties. Due to the lack of high-level experts, many of the referees here weren't up to standard. Fights were often out of control, and the smell of blood and cruelty permeated the air. However, such boxing matches were unusually popular. Many people loved them and were willing to spend money for them. According to the reports he had read, the boxing masters in Shengxiang were a group with a high rate of disability. If they hadn't reached the inhuman stage and had their root pulp mutated, they would often suffer from illness and pain after they passed their prime. They might not even live past 50. Of course, compared to many other professions, this was already very fortunate. Not only was the income good, but they could also bully the weak with their martial arts and seize some resources. As for transvestites, they were glorious for a moment, but painful for many years. The reason why there was such a difference between the two countries was because other than martial arts, China was developing well in other aspects as well. For children, practicing martial arts was mostly a dream and a future, but for people of the same age in Shengxiang, it was only a matter of survival. Lu Cheng guided them with all his heart. There was no discrimination, only sighing. The qualifications of the child opposite them were only average. In China, he wouldn't be able to pass the first distribution. He had to study. At 5:30 p.m., the event ended. Lu Cheng and the rest didn't encounter any trouble. They successfully found a place to eat and returned to the hotel. At night, at the place where the Japanese representatives were staying, the researcher, Masai Otaki, held back his excitement and started the preliminary treatment of Ranli's hair, intending to separate the hair follicles. He was concentrating on the operation when a dim light suddenly lit up in front of him. He saw the 2 strands of hair burning rapidly, turning into ashes in an instant, giving off a faint fruity fragrance. How did this happen? Masai Otaki was dumbfounded. After a few minutes, the phone in the room of the Japanese representative's leader rang. He picked it up and realized it was Masai Otaki. He was shouting with difficulty, "Help! Help! Help!" The leader hurried out and called for help. He opened the door of Masai Otaki's room and saw him lying on the floor, curled up like a shrimp, vomiting non-stop. He seemed to be in pain. It's poisonous," Masai Otaki struggled to say after seeing the help. "Seems like a mistake." Ranli stared blankly at the dazzling array of decorations in front of her and muttered to herself. "There shouldn't be anyone around, right? Forget it, I won't really hurt anyone. I'll just feel uncomfortable for a while." Yes, that's settled." Ranli clapped her hands and walked to the bathroom happily, intending to take a good bath. The next day, August 27th, Lu Cheng, who had mostly recovered from his injuries, felt that he would be able to complete his transformation in another 2 to 3 days and truly enter the inhuman stage. After the morning sparring session, he rested, watched the videos, and waited for the next match to experience the 6 paths of reincarnation punch. As for whether Peng Liyun or Kaori Karasawa would be the final champion, he would definitely stand on his teammate's side. At 7:30 p.m., they arrived at the Shengxiang Stadium after a full meal. They entered the changing room to make the final adjustments before the match. Outside the door, there was a sea of people and the heat was overwhelming. It didn't seem like they were watching the finals, but rather a festival. Inside the door, Peng Liyun was holding his phone horizontally. It was playing the battle video between Lu Cheng and Kaori Karasawa. However, his eyes weren't focused on the screen, as if he was thinking of something. Ran Li, who had nothing to do, was also playing with her phone. Her beautiful eyebrows furrowed from time to time as if she wanted to argue with someone. However, she controlled herself in the end. And Chao Yang, on the other hand, had his headphones on, listening to music quietly as if he was in a deserted place. As for Lu Cheng, he was, of course, chatting with his little fairy. If you lose, I'll laugh at you for the rest of my life. Cover mouth snicker emoji. For the rest of my life. Lu Cheng's lips curled as he typed. This feels so scary. I have to think about how much I should lose. Just like that, time ticked by. Lu Cheng put away his phone, intending to close his eyes and rest for 15 minutes. At this moment, he caught a glimpse of Peng Liyun's return from the corner of his eye. His eyes were rejuvenated, and he couldn't help but remember something. He asked in a low voice. What's with the curse? It feels weird and scary. Is it based on the principle of quantum entanglement? He guessed with his half-baked knowledge of physics. Peng Liyun turned his head to look at him and chuckled. That's a blind spot in my knowledge. I'm just an undergraduate. Hey, you know this joke? Lu Cheng blurted out in surprise. I'm not a caveman. Peng Liyun shook the phone in his hand, amused. Both he and Lu Cheng were rather relaxed. In the Japanese representatives area, the leader took a deep breath and threw all the distracting thoughts to the back of his mind. He looked at Kaori Karasawa and asked, How do you feel? Next up was the battle for Japan's honor. Kaori Karasawa moved her limbs and smiled. Not bad. My injuries should be fine now. Good. The leader nodded in satisfaction. In another changing room, Gusai, who was preparing, saw the leader walking over and heard him say in a deep voice, Lu Cheng defeated Muko Yamashita, Banam, and even forced Kaori Karasawa to use the quadruple aerial ace. He's publicly recognized as one of the top 4 experts in this competition. If you can defeat him, you'll be able to clear your name and Shengxiang's name. You'll be praised by everyone and receive all the glory. Gusai was also an accomplished monk. He wasn't agitated when he heard that. Instead, he replied calmly. He's a true expert. There's a certain gap between us. It's unlikely that I'll win. Besides, he was also injured in the battle with Peng Liyun. Don't worry. We've already contacted Wu Shang from Miluo. He'll be the referee for the match between you and Lu Cheng, said the leader proudly. Lu Cheng will find out and be suspected by everyone. Gusai shook his head slowly. No, because he won't affect your opponent or interfere with your battle. It's just that his mutated ability can help you perform better at crucial moments without attracting attention. Fight with all your heart and show everyone what the right way is. The leader waved his hand passionately. Entering the finals would be too eye-catching. 3rd place was just right. After a moment of silence, Gusai replied, I only know how to be myself. I didn't hear anything else. Very good. The leader left, satisfied. Waku, who had followed along, watched quietly without saying a word. Perhaps this was the hurdle of Junior Gusai's cultivation. He would only understand after experiencing it for real. When he won against Lu Cheng, he would often feel guilty and troubled because of this matter. Unable to see through it, he would then understand the falseness of his body and mind. He would hate everything in this world and develop the intention to leave. Gusai sat there motionless for a long time. Only when the announcement was made did he suddenly stand up like a mountain, his terrifyingly fat jiggling. You're tuning in to this Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.